Shabbos, friends. So beautiful to see you all. Look, you have your Shabbat face on, even though it's morning. It's Shabbos. The incomparable and remarkable Deborah Sachs-Mintz and Rabbi Shirako Fait, my next door neighbor and beloved Romemu musician, with that stunningly divine chant and song, Makom Bina. You can look it up on YouTube. It's so beautiful. It'll stay in your head and kind of act as like a cleansing agent throughout the day. So blessings to you. We need to make a bracha before we learn Torah, just a blessing on seeing people's faces. In the Gemara and the Talmud, when people would see each other, they would say Tzafar Tava, Boker Tov, Boker Or, a good Novstant. Good to see you, Laurie and Jay, all of the chevra here. So, unfortunately for me, I don't have one of those screens that can see everyone all at once, which would be lovely. But I can see about 20-something of you at a time, so I'll try my best to see as many faces as possible throughout this morning's open book. we're going to be learning a little bit more into what I discussed last night, but in greater, kind of expand upon the sermon from last night and really look at this remarkable two-word phrase that appears in chapter 36 of this morning's Torah reading in the book of Exodus. Um, just to note everybody, um, we're gonna be mindful. I think last week was a record week of the number of people that wanted to speak that didn't get a chance, and it wasn't lost on me. It was die v'hoter. There was more than enough, and there was a lot. And I also felt that I wanted this week very much to make sure that when we do eventually open this up for people to speak and share their Torah, that we're also mindful of how many people in the group want to share, which is wonderful, and we'll try our best to be collectively on top of that, so that not one person has to do that. Does that make sense to all of you? I can see those who have a camera on nodding, and those who aren't, I'm sure you're nodding too, or thumbs upping. Great. All right, we're gonna and thank you, Roberta, for sending that along last night. I read it with relish. I was up thinking a lot about what I said to others to think about. I was thinking a lot about that, and thank you for what you shared. I hope that maybe you'll share a piece of that when we get to the opening this morning. Gonna share my screen with y'all. I love saying y'all because we really don't have a third person plural up here, over here, in these parts. Let me see.
Fun fact about that recording, I was in the audience to hear it. This is Maya speaking.
I wasn't sure. That was like, where's the voice coming from? David, Hineni, Maya.
Tabasco.
Okay, let's see. Zoe, I'm going to share the screen. Y'all thumbs up me if you see it. That's a good gesucht. Let's make sure it's a single page. You know, Mark, whenever I see you, I feel like that we're back in the Hasidic Masters class. I'm about to ask you to drop one of your Kabbalistic tarot cards, but that's maybe borrowing from the wrong class. I don't know. Just curious, what showed up today, Mark? You can unmute yourself. What came?
Well, I pull a card every morning, and today is the Queen of Wands.
Okay, Queen of Wands. You'll have to go get a reading with a Kabbalistic tarot reader to understand what that means. I think not everybody's into tarot. It's okay. It's okay. We have a lot of different ways in, a lot of doorways. Blessed is the one, Baruch atah Yah. Please join me, Eloheinu Ruach Haolam. Asher Gershanu b'mitzotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed is the source of the ever-flowing fount of wisdom that we step into, never the same way, twice. Torah evolving with us. Blessed is the one who brings this connection and this nexus between the present moment and the infinite moment, as it were, so that we might add our voice to the evolution of Torah and with it apply the wisdom to our lives. Baruch atah Yah. Hamelame Torah the Moisrael. Blessed are you, the one who gives us just the right amount to learn, that we might apply wisdom and live a healthier, more wholesome and holy life. So these psukim are really remarkable. I mean, every year we come to this, and I kind of think to myself, what's the Torah teaching us with this business? For those of you who, if you're following along as the Torah turns each week, we're at the last, itsy bitsy last pieces of the book of Shmos, the book of Exodus, and the last five parshiot, the last five portions of the book of Exodus, which take up a big chunk of course, of the book, are dealing with the Mishkan, with the tabernacling, the building of this portable sanctuary, this mobile unit of divine connection, this hotspot, as it were, throughout the hot desert that allowed us in some small measure, according to at least the Ramban and others, to bring Sinai with us. That was its point, right? To bring Sinai with us wherever we went. That even as we departed from Sinai, we brought something with us, as it were, a remnant of Sinai, the residue of Sinai in some really profound form. And what's remarkable, of course, about these five parshiot, right, that begin in Truma, then Tetzaveh, with a brief interruption to bring us the golden calf story, which is, of course, the most important of all of the parshiot of these last five, because it's, of course, the centerpiece of the five, we pick up again in Vayakel Pekude, almost always read as a double portion, which indeed this morning it is. And it's really a repetition. In so many ways, it's so profoundly redundant as to beg the question, that has plagued commentators for centuries. What's haste? What do we have? What do we need all of this, right? We have to go back over it again. Is it the implementation? Is it just the instructions? This is the actual doing of it? Okay. But within this seeming redundancy is another verse about redundancy. There's a whole episode of redundancy within redundancy, like a double redundancy, which is itself yeah, again and again and again. One of the great commentators in the Hasidic lineage, known as the Mea Shiloach, Mordechai Yosef Lehner of Ishbitz, he says that the reason for the redundancy is because true volunteering and true giving is something that we're called upon to do over and over and over again, as if to test the depths of our giving nature. Like, when do you say enough? Enough asking. You already called me once before. Is this the third time you're asking for more money? You're asking for more? You're asking for more? Right? I think some people who have been in the synagogue world for more than 5 minutes can appreciate that sentiment. Right? But the Ishbitzer says in his own way that the kind of birurim, he calls it, Hebrew term for clarification, that the entire five parshiot are basically saying, this is what it means to build the world, is that you'll be called upon over and over and over again to give your gifts. It never stops. Now, whether that's your take or not, there's no doubt that in the beginning of Parshat Vayakel, the Torah starts to tell us about this giving business again, and it doubles down. They are nidivim, they're called. They're called generous of spirit. We hear that the women, right, v'hanashim tavu, right, v'hanashim asher nisa'am libam b'chokhmah, they brought their wisdom. Not even, the Torah doesn't say their hearts, it says their wisdom. They brought their intelligence, they brought what they brought, that whole piece about, right, all this beauty, beauty, beauty people are bringing, and then these verses. Verse 5, 6, and 7. So I would love our Master Richard just to bring me into this moment of we're coming back. And there's nothing more stable in our community than Richard Hosed at Shabbat Morning Open Book. So Richard, would you read? Can we ask you to unmute?
Glad to. Thank you for that compliment. That's very nice. And said to Moses, the people are bringing more than is needed for the tasks entailed in the work that the Lord has commanded to be done. Moses thereupon had this proclamation made throughout the camp. Let no man or woman make further effort toward gifts for the sanctuary. So the people stopped bringing. Their efforts had been more than enough for all the tasks to be done. Beautiful verses.
Say it again.
Beautiful verses.
Aren't they? It's like, I love Torah when it's like this. It just feels like this is like a lyric that stays in your kishkes, in your mind, in the mimetic, archive, right? This beautiful Vayaviru kol b'machaneh. Moshe sends out this voice into the camp, which of course brings us back to another kind of Vayaviru kol b'machaneh, that they're after the golden calf episode. Whoever was with Moshe says, "En kol anos gevura," right? There's a certain voice there that's a voice of maybe an undignified voice, a voice of alarm, a voice of maybe our banality and our lowest, right? The places where we go that are so indicative of how low humans can go, right? Whatever we believe about the golden calf, but just as an archetype of how low can you go. But here it's sublime, right? This voice is a voice of, hey, die, enough, enough, right? Not everybody was in the giving mood. Let's talk about for a minute before we go into this business of Daiva Hotir. Let's go to, let's zoom out slightly so we can see where we are. Let's go to this remarkable midrash that Rashi brings on some verses that are earlier. Let me get Rabbi Rivera, would you mind reading source number 7 here, which V'hanesiim, I'm going to make it a little bit larger.
Thank you for eyes that need glasses.
Yeah.
והנשיאים הביאו את אבני הסוהם ואת אבני המילואים לאפוד ולחושן. And the chieftains, the nesiim, right? And they brought, the presidents brought lapis lazuli and other stones for the setting and for the ephod and for the breastpiece.
So beautiful, right? They're the ones, the Nisi'im, the chieftains, they do call them the presidents, meaning the politicians. They're the big machers, right? They're the machers of the machers. Nisi'im are the machers, right? They're the representatives of all the tribes. They brought the Avnei Shoham. What are the Avnei Shoham? Are these the stones for the breastplate, right? What's interesting here is, of course, Rashi in source 8. Maya, can you read source 8? Rashi here in this brings a beautiful midrash that's found in Midrash Rabbah and also in Midrash Tanchuma, the big corpus of rabbinic literature that expands, right? Midrashim. Why does the Torah have to tell us here that the Nesi'im are bringing these stones?
Amar Rav Natan, Mara'u Nesi'im lehitnadev bechanukat hamizbeach, batchila uvmelachet hamishkan, lo hitnadvu batchila. אלא כך אמרו נשיאים, התנדבו ציבור מה שמתנדבים ומה שמחסרים, אנו משלימים אותו. כיוון שהשלימו ציבור את הכל, שנאמר והמלאכה הייתה דיים, אמרו נשיאים, מה עלינו לעשות? Nice. Rabbi Natan asked, what reason had the princes to give their contributions at the dedication of the altar? Why not anyone else? First of all, the people, whereas at the work of the tabernacle, they were not the first, but the last to contribute. But, replied Rabbi Natan, the princes spoke thus: let the community in general contribute all they wish to give, and what will then be lacking, we shall supply. When the community gave everything, needed in its entirety, as it is said, for the stuff they had was enough, more than enough, for all the work to make it, and some was left. The Nesi'im asked, what are we supposed to do? There's nothing left to do. Therefore, haviu et avnei hashoam. לכך התנדבו בחנוכת המזבח תחילה, ולפי שניתצלו מתחילה נחסרו אות משמם, והנשיאים כתיב. So they brought the onyx stones. That is why they were the first to contribute at the consecration of the altar, because they were I don't know that I know this word.
Yeah, dilatory.
Dilatory.
Unbelievable. Who translated this? But anyway, go ahead.
What does that mean? At the beginning, a letter is missing here. What is the Hebrew word that it was dilatory? Okay, anyway.
Bitatzlu. It's
Bitatzlu.
Yeah.
From a letter is missing from their title, thus intimating that something, zeal was for example, was lacking in them. For it is written Hanisi'im instead of the Ha-Nisi'im with an yud. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we look back at the verse, here it says Vehanisi'im, yeah? There's a way to write that where there would be a yud between the aleph and the mem, Nisi'im, also a yud between the sin and the aleph. There are two yuds that are really missing. It's chaser, it's so lacking. And so the non-expansive word, in other words, using just the minimum number of letters, is also an allusion to their kamtsanut, to their small-mindedness, their lack of expansion. They missed an opportunity to give. And so can you just say a little bit more about what you read in terms of the Rashi? What's Rashi's, he quotes the Midrash. What's he saying about what the verse and everything was more than enough? What does it bring out? What does it kind of highlights something, right?
Well, he seems to be saying that it's not that they were small-minded, but that they were at first, right? But that they didn't know, right? They lacked a certain creativity. Everyone already brought. What are we supposed to do, right?
Right, but it's rooted in a posture that he says that they adopted.
Right, their small-mindedness, their lack of creativity.
They said everybody else will bring, but they didn't trust that the people would bring enough. In other words, they already assumed that people would not be generous, and so they would just fill it in. Right? So they said, listen, why do we have to rush? There's no rush. It's not like they're going to finish it. I mean, it's about the populace. We'll just stay on the side and wait to fill in what they don't bring. Right? And so he hears the Midrash rather, and Rashi brings it here.
Haughtiness, right? It's a haughtiness.
A kind of haughtiness, or a kind of a non-gener, a kind of almost like, if we want to read it in with a benevolent eye here, we might say that they are they lack a certain confidence in the generosity of the people, and in others they knew that they were going to give, but they didn't want to participate until they saw what was what was there, and then they felt almost left out. Now, this kind of "I'm almost left out" is really at the heart of the first teaching from the Orach Chaim. So let's just go to this Orach Chaim, the second source on this page. One second, which I alluded to last night very briefly, but I wanted you guys to see it, as they say, inside. And it's hard to at the bottom. We're going to figure out a better way to paginate here. Okay, I'm going to read it. I'll read the Orach Chaim in the Hebrew. This question is a question that becomes the question that this Rabbi Chaim Ibn Attar, the great Moroccan saint and Moroccan rabbi, who the Hasidic masters quoted all the time, right? The Hasidic masters in the Ukraine and Eastern Europe, they quoted the Orach Chaim HaKaddish, they called them, the Holy Orach Chaim. In fact, there's even a folk tale, a lore that says that the Baal Shem Tov, the great founder of the Hasidic movement, said that if he and the Orach Chaim had met, Mashiach would have arrived. And he tried to make it there, but they didn't get a chance to meet each other. This Orach Chaim asked a question that becomes quoted throughout the last 200 to 300 years. He said, it would seem bet dvarim hafchiyim, that when the Torah says it is more dayam v'hoter, it is enough v'hoter, and there was extra or excess or extra, or Chaim says that's a contradiction. It's either enough or it's more. What's the point of the Torah reminding us of these two things, that it's both sufficient and yet too much? Now, one could easily say it's a colloquialism, that the Torah is saying, oh, it's more than enough, right? The people were really generous. But for the Orach Chaim, for Rav Chaim Ibn Attar here, he has to find a way to reconcile these two positions. Is it enough or is it more? Im dayam eno hoter. If it's enough, it's not too much. V'im hoter eno dayam. If it's too much, then it's not enough, right? It was more than enough. V'kan ein makom lamar. He says this is not the place for us to say lo zu af zu. Right? This is not. We're not going to say that the Torah is mentioning this as a kind of, right. It's as I said, a colloquialism. It's it's not this. It's not just this, but it's also this. So here's his answer. And v'od, he says, listen. Before I get to the answer, I'm sorry. He says kol hakasav miyutar. It's already, the whole verse is really unnecessary. It itself is too much, because they already said earlier that it was that they were marbima am lahavi is too much. Okay, so here's his answer, and then I'm going to open this up. V'ulai sheyashmi'enu hakatuv chibat b'nei Yisrael b'einei hamakom. Maybe the verse has come to show us the beloved nature of the Jewish people in God's eyes. Ki letzad sheheviu Yisrael yoter mishiur hatzarich chash Hashem l'chvod kol ish shetarchu v'heviu. That God saw that each person really brought what they could bring. They made an effort to give. They tried their hardest to give. Each person. They said, I don't know what I can give, but I'm going to give this. I'll give this. What can I do? I'll bring what I have, and maybe that'll work. And God said, you know what? God, he said a miracle happened. Because God said, I'm so concerned that people will feel that their gift wasn't required. He says that through a miraculous expansion, God made room for everything. Right? That's what he says it means. Haya hayta dayam. It was enough. Lo chaser v'lo yoter. Hagam she'eta yoter kifi ha'emet v'hu omro v'hoter ki na'asa nes v'lo hotir. So he says that the inclusion of the word, and it was more than enough, it's excess, it's extra, is to tell us that even though there was more than was required, nobody felt that their gift had no place. even though it could have been seen, says the Or HaChaim, right, that one would say, you know what, potentially I might not give next year because look, I gave them all those books and look, they're sitting in the gym. Nobody's putting them to good use, right? I gave what I could give. I gave my hours, but they clearly didn't need it. So says the Or HaChaim HaKadosh that this is a kind of moral lesson for those who are the receivers of the good, is that when one sees good intentions from someone, when somebody desires to give, they bring as much as they can give, that it's in some way to make room for that is both a function of, right, a very generous spirit on behalf on the part of the one who is receiving, but also attunes us to the psychology of the giver. A giver who gives but feels that their gift is not needed will not give again. It will disincentivize them. It'll deplete them. It'll fill them with a sense of despair. Look, it was left over. It wasn't necessary. What do I have to bring? They don't even need me. So we stop here for a moment. We're going to make our way into the Berditchever, who also reads this Or HaChaim, but he reads it and quotes it, but then goes into a different direction. So I wanted to open this up at this moment. Open this book and see if there are people who'd like to share. Okay. Go ahead, Brother Jay. Let me see where you are. You should be able to go, Jay. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
there we go.
There
Shabbat
you go.
shalom. A question and a thought. The question is, given your earlier point about how the shadow that the golden calf casts over this whole section, number one, how much was this overgenerosity potentially tshuva for donating all the jewelry and stuff to make the golden calf? That's my question. And the thought is, there's almost like in this last commentary, almost like a Lurianic perspective, as if space has to be created, even where there's an overflow, so that when people give, there's a sense that they are in fact filling the space. So there's like a retreat all the time to create more space for giving.
I love both of those comments. First of all, the use of the word oz when it comes to goats, or a's really, in Hebrew a's, but a lot of the commentators say that the mentioning of goats as frequently as it does in this week's parsha, right, the weaving and the braiding of the hair of the goat's hair and so on, a lot of a's business, ayin zayin. And many early commentators, the Midrash, and then later on say that if this entire tabernacle is a response to the cataclysmic mistake and fall and breaking that is the golden calf, then of course it comes as a corrective. And what is needed when one falls in some way is to feel of service. One girds one's strength, one's o's, one's a's, to say, okay, I'm going to give again. And I'm going to love again. I'm going to work again. We're going to be together again. There's a kind of future, a strong emphasis on finding the strength, the O's, to give again, right? And maybe I'll give and look, I gave last time and look what happened. It became a golden calf. And especially with the emphasis on the gold, right? The gold in the Mishkan is very much connected to the gold of the golden calf and so on. So yeah, that's a really good point. Number one. Number two, Isaac Luria, of course, the Ari is everywhere in Hasidic and Kabbalistic and Hasidic teachings. And the template of making room for, like making the vessel larger, is very much part of Lurianic Kabbalah, and certainly in the cosmogony of Luria, that the world was created through a dangerous excess, right? A dangerous excess becomes a breaking of vessels, and here God says, you know what, v'hoter, it's more like dai v'hoter, it's enough, but I'll make room for the extra instead of the vessel breaking. Of course, the word dai and the word shaddai are very much connected, right? And the rabbis play off of that God created the world and then said enough, right? Right? That God said expand, 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 and then stop expanding. Die becomes a limiting word, right? Dayenu. It would have been enough, right? Shaddai is the one who said to the world, die, in the playful reading of the rabbis, right? The one said enough. And here, in this corrective, as it were, in the microcosmos of the Mishkan, there's a kind of, it's enough, but we can make a little bit more room.
Od echad v'dai.
Right? Exactly. Od echad v'dai. Exactly. Od echad v'dai. All right, blessed friend, thank you for your Torah. Ilana.
Shabbat shalom. So my comment comes in the context of thinking about the chiasmic structure of all five parshiot, where there's a kind of godding going on, sort of like a map that's the sfirot, where we start with Shabbat and we end with Mishkan, and in the middle, so in the middle is this golden calf, and I'm thinking about the difference between how the people give in the golden calf. Also, the people give of themselves and their resources, but it comes from this place perhaps of despair and constriction and narrowness. And then with the building of the Mishkan, over and over, we're instructed and told that the people gave from their gifts. The women gave from their wisdom. They gave from their generosity. They gave from their hearts and the gifts of their hearts. And so even in the structure of the five, it's a kind of a healing practice map of how do we realign ourselves from our deepest place from which to live and give and build our holy sanctuaries.
I love it that substance and form here are not two, that the content of and the teaching is also reflected in the way it's taught. And I think that's a very powerful, it's a very powerful literary read. It also opens the heart to say like, oh, that's the work of leaving Egypt is not over until we learn how to pick ourselves up again and rebuild the places that we've broken, the places that we've missed, right? And that's the book of Exodus can't, like the full Exodus, Yetziat Mitzrayim, the book of the names can't be complete until there's a sense here of building something, right? That we built something that's part of the project of lifting ourselves up is contributing in a way and feeling that our contribution is received and that we can trust ourselves to give in the right way, even when we've given in the wrong way some other times, or we've kind of missed the mark. Very beautifully, Lana. Thank you for your Torah. Thank you for your Torah. Beth, go ahead.
Shabbat shalom. I'm a digital member from Ohio. Thanks for having me here.
Of course.
I had two comments.
We have enough room in the Zoom room. Dai v'hoter. It keeps getting, we can expand.
I have two comments. One is about the chieftains. On the one hand, they were willing to fill in whatever was lacking, but then on the other hand, they didn't step up and give first and set an example, which is really, I would have liked it better if they'd stepped up. And the other idea that I had was about the expansion to make room for all the generosity. Of course, in this case, we're talking about the building of the Mishkan, but if you're talking in contemporary terms, there's always room for another project. You know, if we had more cash, oh my gosh, we could fill more lunch bags. If we had this, we could do more, we could do more, we could do more. And I think it's not just a giving of goods, but also an expansion of ideas becomes available with all that giving.
So on the first piece that you offered, Beth, yeah, I think it's an example of maybe their intention was to fill in, and then they found themselves, right, feeling left out, and so it kind of the emphasis there on being on not waiting or on jumping in and doing what you can and not making a plan. All right, so very very accurate to what you were saying. And the second piece too is that I know the shadow side of not ever being able to stop giving too, right? And the sense of where more becomes a kind of compulsion, or more can become But when you started speaking, I just could see, Oscar Schindler in Schindler's List talking about what he felt he still hadn't finished, and the more that he could have done, and that of course it's not on us to finish the work, but there's always more that we can do here, more that we can give, and I love that you brought us to that. Like if we could, if we had more money, if we had more, we could do more, and I think that's implicit here too. And what's remarkable too, I think, in the Or Chaim here is the largesse, as it were, of the psychology of God, as it were, as the receiver, to know the psychology of the giver, right? Like that sometimes someone will give you something and you don't need it, and you take it anyway. Obviously I'm thinking about children frequently. That's my world, is the world of receiving gifts from my kids, and my son wasn't giving. My sons often don't give me presents because they think because I don't often receive their gift because I really needed the gift, but I needed them to know that what they gave was important to me, right? So yeah, they give me another, I don't know, they get stuff all the time. I don't need another mug. I had one mug for my entire life. It's one, but if they get me a mug with like a Abba picture on it, it's gonna stay there forever, right? Like Reb Zalman used to say that when you say "I love you" to your partner, you're not giving them new information. If they said, "Listen, you told me yesterday," and they say, "That's I wasn't," I want to get beautiful. Thank you, Beth. Guys, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna take Jill, and then I see the hands. We can keep the hands up. But we're gonna go to the Kedushas Levi because I really wanted to go there too, the Berdichever. So go ahead, Jill.
Yes, Rabbi. I was actually just thinking, what you had said about the quality of God as receiver, and it almost brings me to tears when I think about, that God would say, "Oh, it's more than enough, but keep coming." It's, "Oh, I can't. I'm overwhelmed." Like, how could God be overwhelmed? But somehow God was overwhelmed. And so the overwhelmed feeling is what I feel like as a tiny little human, not, God can do everything, can receive everything, but even God was overwhelmed at how much we wanted to be close to God. So this idea of it being sufficient, what that means to me is that, everything, all the physical things that needed to be in the temple were there. And then the more than enough was when he saw the heart of the givers. It was overwhelming for God.
And so, in your reading, Jill, the overwhelming, in other words, that God was moved, affected by the generosity of spirit, the people's desire, and some might even say, in bringing in something that was said earlier, maybe by Jay, maybe the overcompensation, right? Listen, we want to show you how sorry we are, or how loving we are, how generous we want to be, and God says, I'm overwhelmed. But it's in the reading here of this Moroccan Rabbi Chaim Ibn Attar, he's saying that God's overwhelm, though, is not overwhelming. God's overwhelm then leads God, as it were, to say, you know what? There's more than enough room, right? It was dayam vehoter. There's more room. I'll make room for your generous spirit. I am overwhelmed, and you can overwhelm me, as it were, but you can't, right? That doesn't mean that I then cut off from wanting to receive your gift. And so I just wanted to put a little point there. And thank you for your Torah, Jill. And I want to go to a decidedly different reading from the Berdichever. And when I open it up in about less than 10 minutes, about 6 minutes, we'll have the last 19 minutes, and you can go back to the first teaching or the second, or whatever you'd like to share. So just let's touch in on the Berdichever. I shared it last night. It had such a profound impact on me when I read it earlier this week, and I shared it last night, and I want to share it again. And so I'm going to read it, if you don't mind, and then we'll come in for a landing. He quotes the Or Chaim. He quotes Chaim Ibn Attar, the Berdichever here, the Rebbe of Levi Yitzchak, as he was known, Levi Yitzchak ben Sarasasha. He was a Hasidic master who lived in the town of Berdichev, and he quoted the Or Chaim, right? The Or Chaim's commentary, belonged to him in that town of Berdichev. And he says, V'hinei lech ora hai dayam v'hoter hu tarte de sasre hadadi. He says, when I look at these two words, dayam, enough, v'hoter, and more, these two statements seem to be in contradiction, right? They're tarte de sasre. It's an Aramaic term meaning these two things knock into each other. They contradict each other. Diem haita dayam lahoter says if it was enough, then it wasn't more. It was enough. One means sufficient. One is more than sufficient. V'ayin v'orachayim. That's he says. Go look at the orachayim, which we did. You see that? We all went to look at the orachayim. We saw that what the orachayim said, right? What was the orachayim's teaching? That there was enough, but really it was hoter. It was more than enough to signal that it was really too much. But God, as it were, made it all work by making more room. A miracle. So it wasn't more than enough. Now he says, let me give my own interpretation. V'yesh lomar, Dihinei hu yisbarach el shaddai el milashon chozek kemo ve'elei haaretz. It says God is called El Shaddai, the God, El of Shaddai, of Shaddayim, or of breasts, or of influence, of giving, of generative, nourishing giving. God is the strength of giving. El Shaddai, he says. V'hakadosh Baruch Hu El Shaddai shemitgaber kivyachol al hashpa'ato. The combination of El, strength, and Shaddai, which means to give, means that God's self has to say, enough's enough. I have to give in the right amount, right? She'amar le'olami dai. He quotes the Talmud here that I quoted to Jay, that the word Shaddai, which means from the literally means either a demonic shade or it means breast giving, but the rabbis playfully read the word Shaddai, the God named Shaddai, as She'amar le'olami dai. Shaddai means I said to my world, enough. God said, if I'm giving you all of the light that I'm going to give you, then it'll be too much. I have to bound the light slightly. Says when something comes from the Infinite One, it is by nature, right? It can become unbound and expanding in so much, infinite. He said, when God creates the world, as God is infinity, when God creates the world is expanding until God says, stop expanding. So God gives each world, right, there's a kind of limiting. So he goes on like this. God has agreed to be in the world according to the capacity of those who are the receivers, right? How much they can take in. And then he goes on to say, if someone can't receive, right? If someone can't receive, I'm going to go down to the part that I really want to get to in a second. So he says, listen, there was a really, the entire work of the Mishkan is very, very particular. This amount, that amount, this number, that number, it's very, very particular. Right? So he says, listen. So he says, when it came to building the Mishkan, Hinei im hayu rotzim lechavein sichlam harchava hayah davar ad ein shiur. So if they, who were building this beautiful microcosm, would have replicated God's mind, it would have also been too much. They had the Spirit of God in them. They too could have built an infinite structure, as it were, that had no boundaries. So, but they were forced, as it were, those who created the Mishkan, the tabernacle, were forced to do dayam, like God did dai in the beginning of the universe. God had to, the people who built the Mishkan in that generation had to do the exact Mishkan for the people in the desert. That's the word dayam. They did it in a way of enough, right? Just the right amount for this generation, not infinite expansion. But what was hoter? What was left over? What is excess? Hotiru latzadikim laasid lavo asher yavo v'yilmedu b'sefer Torah ma'asim melechta mishkan b'chol tzadik v'tzadik lifi sichlo yakir ta'alumos chachma. He says they left over for those who are coming in every generation to complete the work of the Mishkan. That's what it means, he says. The work of the Mishkan is not completed, right? The Dayam is that generation. But the Hoter, what is left over, Shehotiru Latzadikim V'Chachamim, for all of us, all of conscious beings, in every generation, Shekol Dor Asher Yishmu V'Yilmedu, that everyone that will learn and fathom what it means to build the Mishkan, Hem Yigmeru Habinyan, V'Yosifu Midata Mash Yasig Sichlam. And in every generation, as I said last night, the Berditchever's answer is that in every generation, the work of the Mishkan is hoter, it is left over for us. That there's a collaboration and a partnership that exists between what we receive in our lives as our deployment, how we are to build the Mishkan in our unique incarnation. That is a gift, as it were, that is left over, right? It's Dayam in their generation, it was enough. They built a microcosm, they built a world. And like God's building of the world, Jay invoked Luria, in God's building of the world, it could have gone on infinitely. They could have done the work, right? They had infinite capacity. But they said, we're going to do the work that we're going to do. And we're going to leave over work of building the Mishkan for future generations. Now, when I thought about this week, especially when someone came to me and said that they had a yortzeit last night and that they were going to be meeting their father, right, who died when this person was 12 years old, it immediately became clear to me that the Berditchever, he was using the language of tzaddikim, which means righteous ones and holy ones, but he means all humanity, right? There's a quality of the things that are unfinished in past generations, right? In a way, I would often, and I have often looked back and said, I wish you would have finished that instead of passing it on to me. Because I don't want to pass on what you passed on to me. I want to pass it back. But somehow in this framing of the Berditchever, I thought to myself, wow, so many of the things that have been passed on to me that were unfinished. Some of them I wish had been finished. But some of them are a gift because now there's room for me. V'hoter. It was left over, as it were, for me to finish. It was left over for me, as it were, to finish. So I'm going to invite you to weigh in on this teaching from the Berditchever and on anything else in the last 16 minutes or so. And so I'm going to go and just be mindful, please, everybody. There are at least, I see 6 hands up. Okay, so just be mindful, if you will. But also, we want to hear what you have to say, please. So, Dayam, I said enough of the Hoter. Now it's up to you. Go ahead. Marilyn in Montreal, my dear friend.
Okay.
Hey, sweet Marilyn.
Good Shabbos from Montreal.
Shabbos.
I sort of love it because our gathering is a little bit like reenacting the Mishkan, right? Where we all want to bring so much, right? And I'm thinking, is it redundant what I'm going to say? I hope not. I hope it's not going to be Hayoter.
No.
What I was thinking was I wanted to bring in last week's Parsha, which of course starts with the sense of black and the people build the golden calf, but then Moses comes down and he is so luminous that he is too much. He is too much for the people and the people can't take it and he has to wear a veil. So it's sort of, I love comparing giving too much material things, but how about giving too much luminosity? And the people, unlike God, were not able to expand enough to be able to take in that too much. So it's almost like this week there's a modeling by God of, yes, it is too much. Yes, as someone said, yes, I am overwhelmed. But, and if necessary, yes, Moses will veil. But is there another option? Is there another option that we can expand enough?
So I want to just point out that the Orach Chaim and the Berditchever are actually very much, he quotes the Orach Chaim reverently, but they themselves, the interpretations are Satre Ahadade, they're different. The Orach Chaim says that the miracle of of the divine capacity, right, is being shown to us. And it reminds us that if somebody comes and says, is my gift, desired, does it have a place here? We say, yeah, let me find a place for it, right? There's enough, there'll be enough room. We'll expand to include. And that the hoter here is a signal to us. It was excess, is what's your excess ability in the moment? Can you make room for the luminosity of the other, the gift of the other, even if it seems redundant, which your Torah was not. It's so beautiful. And the second teaching of the Berditchever is slightly different. He says the extra is real extra. But the extra doesn't come from the capacity of the receiver to make room for the extra. It's the capacity of the one to not finish all the work and to leave it, as it were, over for others. Recognizing that, yeah, I could have made use of all the gifts, but why would I make use of all the gifts? I want to leave over some for later. There's an important kind of doggy bag quality here of like there's work here for that. If there is no work for others to do, right, then the British were saying, no, that's not, the Mishkan has to be that everyone will bring a gift, but maybe not everyone in that moment, right? Maybe not all of the gifts are for that moment. Maybe they get played out over time, as it were, right? And so time here becomes the way that we deal with the excess. And it's a powerful reminder to us in both directions. Can we expand to receive Moshe's light? That's one piece. That's the Or Chaim. How much light can you receive? So that the person doesn't have to always, be veiling themselves, right? Sometimes the work is not on the person to dampen their light, but for us to make room for it. And sometimes we recognize that maybe now is not the moment to bring all of our light. Maybe it has to be done over time, right? And that's like the work of the rabbinic tradition. It's like they couldn't receive all of Moshe's light that day, but guess what? Over time, and it dripped through. We built the Mishkan every day. And I think that the British were saying to me and to you and to Barbara and to Rachel and to Marilyn, everybody saying like, what's been left over for you to do? That's one piece. And then the other piece is, how can we make room for the gifts that we have to bring and ask the world to, like J. Alfred Prufrock, right? Is there room for us in the universe? Do I dare disturb the universe? Make a holy disturbance. Yes. Okay, beautiful people. Beautiful Torah from Maryland, Montreal. Richard, and then Margot and Rachel. Richard?
I'm thinking about relating all of this to what it means for God to dwell among the Israelites, which the Mishkan, at least in part, is designed to do, to allow. And when one feels that, and the relation between that and the symbolic importance of everyone making a gift, and in this case, the gifts are tangible, you can see them when the Mishkan is assembled. So I was thinking about other instances in which perhaps I felt something like a sense of the spiritual dwelling among us or dwelling with me in my own life. And there were two that immediately came to mind. One was the first time we went to the Vietnam Memorial in DC, shortly after it was completed, before there was a stone path. People were still doing rubbings of names and leaving gifts behind, together with the 50,000 odd names that are on the stones, a reminder that everyone gave. And a similar sense of powerful emotion happened when we went down to the World Trade Center area not too long after the destruction of the Trade Center, and to Trinity Church, and saw all the gifts and flowers and posters that had been left on the fence. It was extraordinarily powerful. And if that's what the symbolism of the community making gifts feels like when the Mishkan is up and in use, then that gives me a sense of perhaps the power of the language we've been studying. Elizabeth, you want?
I had another thought, and that was the fact of the metaphor of the unfinished Mishkan is really a metaphor for the unfinished Torah, which we are here celebrating, adding to, and embossing upon.
So all three of those insights, first of all, bringing us to the gifts. in the wake of tragedy, in the wake of, right, like the Mishkan as the place where people brought their gifts in the wake of something tragic, and doubling down on the importance of each contribution as both, what does necessary mean, in the terms of generosity and giving. And here, just both of those striking moments of the outpouring, this absolutely, the need also to give, like the need to give, to say, you are not forgotten, and it mattered to me. I'm giving something as a way of saying the space that you took up in my heart, right? I'm giving from that place. It's such a profound invitation to think about that. And the unfinished Torah, absolutely. I think that was what Marilyn was alluding to a little bit with Moshe, and that I was saying a little bit, like Moshe's light was the veiling of Moshe, as it were, leaves room for us to say, give us a couple of generations to finish this, or maybe forever. Maybe the infinity of Torah is that forever, in every generation, we are both unpacking the Torah and building the Mishkan, each of us in our own way, in our own lives, each and every day. Thank you for your gifts, Richard and Elizabeth. Margot.
Okay, Tov, good Shabbos. So if according to Or Chaim, if it took a miracle to balance the yoter with enoughness, how are we going to get it right in our lives? And lo alecha hamlacha l'gmor, you're not obligated to complete the work. How do you know when you've done enough, particularly when the demands?
I'm unmuted. So.
Particularly when the demands are enormous, and you feel that you can't give enough because, for example, in climate change, the need is so great, and you're frustrated because you want to do more, and nothing you do seems to be accepted. It's like the miracle's not here anymore. God's not letting us give our gifts, and lo alecha hamlacha l'gmor can be a trap to not do as much as we need to do because it's been left over for the next generation. But if you listen to Greta Thunberg, you didn't do enough, and we're going to look back on you and say, where were you, oh previous generation?
Right. So this is the dialectic. Yeah, no, Margot Hashamati, and I think that's why I brought both of these. And I said it last night also. I said in my class, I think yesterday, that Reb Zalman at the end of his life did an incredible end of life meditation that at Romemu we played it like I think 3 different years for Kol Nidre, where Reb Zalman had come to, well, it was someone else, Gary Malkin, had brought many spiritual teachers to do end of life meditations for those who are passing, and Reb Zalman did one called Into Your Blessed Hands that you can get on iTunes. Into Your Blessed Hands, 7 minutes of Reb Zalman's profound depth, and in it he speaks about the lo alecha hamlacha l'gmor business, meaning like do what you can, and do as much as you can, and then and God says, I'm making room for all of it. If you do more than you think you can, keep going. I have infinite capacity, right? But with certain problems, they need generations, and that's where the Berditchever comes in. And Reb Zalman said that. He said, there's so much work left to do, but I leave it in your blessed hands, God. That was the title. I leave it in your blessed hands. And it was it wasn't a desperation and a passivity and a fatalism. It was a faith and a trust that held both the work that we have to do, but also recognizing that the work won't be finished by us, right? Which, right, again, that's what the Bridges were saying. Like, they could have finished it at the Mishkan, right? But then there's work to do. We have our work to do. So I can also reflect back to you the frustration of knowing how that the knife's edge, the razor's edge on how much is too much and how much is too little. I think that's a common trope for us humans. Could I do more? Yes. If I always think that way, can I live? It's very hard. So, thank you for bringing that. And Shamati, Margot, thank you for your Torah. Rachel, Mark, we're going to try to Dayam V'Hoter. Go ahead, Rachel, and then Mark.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Rachel.
Hi.
It seems to me that God is giving this really amazing teaching about the nature of freedom. That my experience of slavery is that a slave cannot give freely because so much is always being taken. Just that's the narrative of slavery: is I'll take your body and I'll take all your time, all your literal children. But in freedom, it seems like God is saying, like, you give and you keep some, and you can expect to have children who will also be able to give and to keep some. And that's this really amazing hope. So I'm very moved by this.
So your Torah becomes a prayer. Rachel, your Torah becomes a prayer, which is what we're always trying to turn Torah into tefillah, Torah into prayer. So what a prayer. Yehi Ratzon, may it be aligned with the deepest principles of human dignity, that we are able to give and also take some, leave some for ourselves, to be able to give from a place of deep freedom, non-compulsion and coercion, that in choice there is great dignity, and that there's some left over for us too. Amen, Rachel. What a beautiful Torah and beautiful tefillah. Thank you for that. I think there were a lot of thumbs up from people going, yes, Rachel, beautiful Torah. Go ahead, Brother Mark.
To build on what Rachel just said, I felt like there's room, there's a reason that the next generation, there's room for them to give. And there needs to be other people giving, is that each generation needs to learn a kind of spiritual responsibility. It's as though, like a father wouldn't do everything for a child, it would be disempowering. So to leave space for others to give allows them to step into their power and spiritual responsibility. And this is also true of the Israelites in the desert, who needed to, as Rachel was saying, needed to walk away from slavery and to sort of stand up for themselves as spiritually responsible free adults.
So, listen, as someone who likes to be in charge of everything, I was the goalie in hockey. I can so appreciate, like, delegating and leaving room, stepping back so others can step forward is such a deep spiritual practice.
It's the I thou. It's the I thou.
It is an attunement to a relationship. It's the I thou. It's attunement. And it's really that's really the essence of Chassidut, because the word Chassid means to be generous. To be mit chased is like one says, God says, hey, can you do a little bit more? And it says, you know what? Sure, I got more to give. I have more devotion, more dedication, more passion. So thank you, Mark, as usual, for your Torah, also at Tefillah. I'm thinking this whole session, which is supposed to end at 10 o'clock, is going to be Dayam Vehoter. We're going to expand to include all of the people. And so my fellow worship leaders, just be on the lookout. We're going to take another 5 minutes and expand. So Lauren, Barbara, and then Ilana, in that order.
So many amazing things have already been said, but what's coming up for me is a word, Rabbi David, that you used in translating the text: boundaries. It's not in the English translation, but you used the word boundaries. And I had to, at that point, I perked up, because that's exactly what I'm thinking of for this Parsha. The backdrop to all of this is community formation. And if we're going to live in a functional community, we need boundaries. And that might be hard for some of us to hear. We want to be expansive. And Margot, I don't by any means mean this as a way of saying no, it's as an excuse not to give, not to do more. But I even think about in sheltering in place and in our little family here, if we don't have boundaries and learn to respect the boundaries and learn to have expectations as to what we can give, but what also the other person can handle, then things are going to deteriorate very quickly.
Yeah, it's the point well taken. The point well taken. There is definitely a read here about the emphasis on on enough, and on the boundary pushing that can become, right? Like, is the overcompensation of the Jews here, the Israelites, a kind of response that the Torah is saying the opposite of what we're saying, which is see what happens when they broke the boundary, and then in trying to correct it, they broke another boundary, right? Like sometimes, like when you want to apologize to someone and they're saying I'm not ready, and you keep pushing, right? There's a kind of boundary quality here that is also as well a kind of counter text to the text that I'm kind of, they're focusing so much on excess and what I call excess ability, and we might say that excess sometimes is excess and can be destructive. So lovely to have that counter voice too here as well. They're both there, of course. I'm going to call on Barbara. Go ahead, and then Ilana, and then we're going to come in for a landing.
Good Shabbos. Thank you so much, Rabbi David, for all this thinking, and everybody else. And maybe I'm going to be a little redundant. I just keep thinking that it's a gift to have so many things undone for the next generation, so that it all comes together as one thing. Because if there isn't, if there aren't things left to be done, then what do we have to look forward to? And what do we hope for? What do we hope to bestow on the next generation? And also because lots of times we don't have answers to things, but it builds, science builds, ideas build. And so then the next generation might have a much better solution. I mean, in practical terms, look at, climate change. Maybe somebody's really going to come up with like the right thing.
Maybe it would be, there are social issues that in some way we wish we could eradicate right now, obviously. And then there are the reality of our capacity. Not saying our will to change has to be engaged. But even so, there are things that in some way have been given to us as a gift for us to finish. And that's a place of exploration. I think that, what I would love is, last night I received from Roberta Wall an exploration of ways that she recognized things that her ancestors, her grandparents, her grandmother had left over for her, as it were, and how that tikkun can happen. So I don't think this is either or today. And I would still love it if some of you would think at some point today, in what ways might a reframe of some of the unfinished business that we have, received, inherited, might also be a gift inviting us to do the work in this lifetime. We're going to end with Ilana, and then we'll make a pivot towards Tefillah this morning. Ilana, go ahead.
Thanks. Two thoughts. One, on that sort of the gifts and the continuing the work, I that's really resonated for me as I'm able to read articles that my grandparents wrote in Jewish Currents magazine, and kind of seeing the thread of their working, whether it's women in the workplace and being pregnant, and my grandmother struggles with that, and sort of relating that to my own experiences, or my grandfather writing about Black Jewish relations in the 60s, and sort of seeing how that still continues today. I think there's a gift in it, and there's, I guess, also one of the gifts of like knowing that you're continuing a thread, or you're standing on others' shoulders and continuing that is really beautiful. On the contrast, that as we were reading this the whole time, I kept thinking kind of what Lauren was saying about boundaries, but also like why is it on the obligation of the receiver to hold maybe the guilt or the need for the giver to give? Like, why isn't the giver aware of what's needed before giving? Why is it like not, I mean, I want to hold also the beauty of giving and making room for all that wants to give, but also sometimes thinking from like an organizational perspective, or when people are volunteering, like you want to volunteer and you want to do that and you want to channel that goodness, but sometimes it's not needed. And if somebody wants to give, like they really want to, why is it upon the receiver to receive that, as opposed to the giver to really, before giving, looking for what's needed? And so that just really sort of stuck with me.
Yeah, I want to underscore that, because I think that was exactly, like, in some sense, that is a kind of a deep thread of psychological dissonance in this, which is, wait a second, what are these Hasidic masters saying? Are they saying that God, it's wonderful for an infinite God to say I have infinite capacity, but like it kind of, in the model of Lurianic Kabbalah, it was God's not measuring the proper amount that led to the original breaking. And then God self had to say, die, enough. I'm not going to give everything I can give. It's not on the receiver, right? It's on the giver to decide how much to titrate in giving, right? The word shaddai, breast, in Kabbalistic literature is that the experience of the just the right amount of nourishment for the baby. Too much would be not nourishing, right? Just the right titration of nourishment on the giver to the receiver, and that's absolutely true. But here the Hasidic masters say, but you know what? But what about what do we do with all of that excess yearning to give, right? So in one model, right, it is God will make room, and that was what Marilyn said. Sometimes we say, you know what, as a receiver, maybe I can make room for this person's intention and they're giving. Maybe they don't know exactly how to titrate, and so I'm going to make a little bit more room for them until they're able to titrate. And that room, that capacity building, then leads them inevitably to like internalize how much they can give and how much is being received. And that's kind of a social cue, right? It's a kind of generosity. It's kind of that generosity place, right? And in the Berditchever's reading, it takes place, that excess is not lost, right? That yearning, that desire to give becomes the template for the inability to finish everything in one generation that then becomes our work as we move forward. I think that's really instructive, and I'm gonna finish with this because we're now Daiva Hoter. The there's a lot to say on this, I'm actually not gonna I'm gonna actually practice my own principle and just say enough's enough. That was a beautiful learning together, and we're gonna make our pivot now into prayer and into the prayer space, and inviting you to get up and stretch and whatever you need to do to put on your prayer for Nelia, to get your talit. This text sheet will remain in the chat area, and if anybody wants to download it and work with it, and then write in what you were going to say. I saw Daniel Berlin's hand up, and I would love to hear your Torah, Daniel, at some point. If you'd like to write to me with whatever came up for you, or Nehemiah as well, if you'd like to write, there's room in this heart to hear your Torah in the coming days. David@romemu.org. And good Shabbos, holy Hevra, really good Shabbos. Beautiful Torah this morning from all of you. Shabbos, friends. Good morning, Boker Tov. Good Shabbos, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Yashar Koach to all of you who gave your Torah this morning. Yashar Koach to all of you for being here and being present in the Zoom space, wherever you are. In the field, as our friend Max is, it seems, with the divine presence surrounding on all sides, and in our little spaces, wherever you are. Big and small, God says, I'll come to you. Right? Table for one, table for two, I'll come to you, wherever you are. So we surrender this morning to the love that is this gift called life. Modeh ani lifanecha melech chai vekayam. Modeh ani lifanecha ruach chai vekayam shehechezart bi nishmotzi bechemla rabba emunatecha chezart bi nishmotzi bechemla rabba emunatecha modeh ani. Grateful are we, Dayenu, Dayenu. It would be enough just to wake up in this story, this body, this moment, this place where the infinite and the finite meet. Hi da da da, hi da 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 da, hi da da da, nai nai nai, modeh ani lefanecha. Elohai nishama shenatata vi tehoraki tavarata tayetzarta tanafachta bi. This breath that is breathing me, this heart that is beating, this gift that you've placed. Tehoraki tavarata tayetzarta tanafachta bi. V'chol zman shenishama b'kibi modern lefnecha. I give thanks to you, Ya Elohai v'Elohei avotai v'imotai ribon kol hama'asim adon kol hanishamot. Baruch atah Adonai hamachazir nishamot lifkarim meitim. Please rise if you are able as we stand and adopt the blessing posture with our knees slightly bent, bridging heaven and earth beneath us in the heart that is the Tiferet, the beauty heart, that brings together and transmutes all of the different feelings into a blessing practice, a generosity of spirit that receives and also is strengthened by the ground beneath our feet. So good morning, everyone. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan tzachvivina levchin bein yom uven layla. You make us conscious beings.
Amen. Bruchat Shechina Eloteinu Ruach Haolam Shastani Betzalmo. You make me in your image.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani bas chorin. You made me free.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani Yisrael. For the Jewish lineage and for those who wrestle with the divine for meaning making.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Bokei akivrim. You open up my blind spots.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam al bisharamim. You clothe me in all that I need and extra clothing that gives me pleasure.
Amen. Love that. That was beautiful. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Oy, matir asurim. For permissions that I had forgotten I needed permission for.
Amen. Bruchat Shechina Eloteinu Ruach Haolam Zokefet Kefufim. You straighten those who are crumpled over. Crumbled over.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokaretz al hamayim. You spread earth over the waters.
Amen. Baruch Yashchina Elateinu Mekor HaChayim Mechina Mitzadei Gaver V'Gveret, who is inviting me to see each of my steps as part of my unique path.
Amen, amen. Baruch Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, שעשה לי כל צורכי, you give me all I need.
Amen. Brucha Shechina Eloteinu Ruach Haolam, Ozeret Yisrael Bigvura. You gird us with strength.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Oter Yisrael v'tifara. For the fleeting but important reminders of my purpose and the purpose of what it is to be incarnated.
Amen. ברוכת שכינה נותן רוח העולם, הנותנת ליעף כוח. To those who are flagging of energy, you give us vitality.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hama'avir sheina me'nai u'tenuma me'af apai. Remove sleep and slumber from my eyes and my eyelids, and allow me to put on my Shabbos face.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Blessed is the source of life. This morning, for these blessings, take a 30-second scan of your blessing field. Notice what's in it, what is blessed, what can you bless, and just awareness of blessing, of presence, awareness of blessing, of light, awareness of presence, and blessing in family and in friends and in community, vayakel, in remembering the gifts that others have brought, and remembering this morning to look out for the moon, even though it's hidden, to find her light. And let us say together, Amen. From blessing to wowing, we lift up words and their value. How we label can lead us to lying or lead us into light. And may the labels we use bring about a world that we would like to see. Baruch Shamar ve'haya olam, Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu Zeh Umekayem, Baruch Mirachem al Haaretz, Baruch Mirachem al Habrios, Baruch Mishalem Sachar Tov L'Riyah, Baruch Chai La'ad V'Kayam L'Netzach, Baruch Boda Umatzil, Baruch Shemur. And with songs of our ancestors, we will bring our unique voice, our passion, our connection, our language. Melech Mishubach Mfuadat Shmo Hagadol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Melech Mulal. Batish bachos.
Mizmor, mizmor, shir. Shir le'yom ha'Shabbat. Mizmor, mizmor, shir. Shir le'yom ha'Shabbat. Mizmor, mizmor, shir. We'll sing the song of Shabbos. Mizmor, mizmor, shir. Shir le'yom ha'Shabbat. Mizmor, shir. Shir le'yom ha'Shabbat. Mizmor, shir. Shir le'yom ha'Shabbos, Haytol le'hodot la'Adonai, tov le'hodot la'Adonai. Oh, it's so good to give gratitude to the one and only Adonai. Ulamer l'shimcha elyon. Ulamer l'shimcha elyon. Le'agid baboker chasdecha Mizmor, Mizmor, Shir. Shir Layom HaShabbos, Mizmor, Mizmor, Shir. Shir Layom HaShabbos, Mizmor, Mizmor, Shir. Sing the song of Shabbos.
Sing a song of Shabbat, a song we sing every day, as our sages have said, say this 3 times a day. Those who dwell in this house, Ashrei Yoshbei Beitecha, Od Yehalelucha Selah. Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha, Od Yehalelucha Selah. Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha, עוד ועוד, יותר ויותר יהללוך, Selah. And we open our hands to the great hand that opens and satisfies to all, touching you, reaching to you all. Let us open our hands with regret and reparation, and opening grace to all. פותח את ידיך ומשביע לכל חי רצון. פותח את ידיך ומשביע לכל חי רצון. And with our hands reaching out to the great one that provides for us, we say and we bless. ואנחנו נברך יה מעתה ועד עולם. הללויה, הללויה. הללו, הללויה, הללו אל בקודשו, הללו בקי עוזו. הללו בגבורותיו, הללו כרוב גודלו. And we all say, כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללו, הללויה. כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללו, הללויה.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hamdarai, 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 ay la 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 la. Ananai, ay la 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 la, ananai, ambarai, la la la.
Hallelujah, take a shofar, hallelujah, never vechinor, hallelujah, tofu machol, hallelujah, mim velugal, hallelujah, titzalei shama, hallelujah, titzalei trua, kol anshama, tehallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah, kol anshama. Hallelujah, hallelujah,
hallelujah. Kol hanishamat hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Every breath I take, let it be a reflection of my love, my presence, my devotion. Every breath is practice itself. Every breath is praising Yah, 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 Ya 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 la la, da la, di la 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 la. Ay la 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 la, da la na 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 na. Kol hanishama, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Everything is Yah. All my breath is Yah. The fluctuation of life, Yah, Yah, Yah. Inhale, exhale. Yah, la, la, Yah, Yah. Nishmas kol chai. Wherever you are, take a moment to breathe in a fresh Shabbat breath. What does Shabbat breathing look like, feel like? Is it longer, shorter, more spacious? You know, the prophet Isaiah says, Im tashivu mi Shabbat raglecha b'yom kochi v'karata la Shabbat oneg. And you proclaim, kri'ah, you call out, Shabbos, pleasure, expansion, spacious. If you're like me and you have 3 little boys running around, maybe not so spacious, maybe should start a child care, called Shabbat Oneg, child care. But maybe breathing on Shabbat is slightly different. Maybe we receive Shabbat, beli mitzarim, without any constriction to the breath. What would it be like if breathing happened freely? The diaphragm and the rib cage moving without any constriction, without any overlay of ego. No right way to breathe, just getting out of the way in breathing. The breath of all life. Nishmas kol chai, tivorech es shimecha, Hashem, Hashem, Eloheinu, Nishmas kol chai, tivorech es shimecha, Havaya Eloheinu, Vinay, nay, nay, ay, nay, nay, no, yeah, yeah. Hey, nay, nay, oh, oh, nay, hey, nay, nay, no, nay, hey, nay, nay, no, hey, nay, nay, no, nay, hey, nay, nay, oh, 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 hey, nay, 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 hey, nay, nay, nay. ורוח כל בשר תפאר ותרומם זכרך מלכנו תמיד מן העולם ועד עולם אתה אל ולכן מלך ואל ומושיע וכל יצר וצוקה אין לנו מלך אלא אתה אלוהי הראשונים והאחרונים כל תולדות המולה ברוב תשבחוס המקיץ נרדמים מנסיך אילמים החלבה דחנה אין אנחנו מספיקים לעבוד אצלך יד עוד ממצרים גאלתנו גאלוהינו מבית עברנו ודיסנו ורעה וזנתנו ושבע קלקלתנו וחירתתנו האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא אל עליון כוני שמיים וארץ נהללך ונשבחך ונפארך ונרד שם קודשך כאמור לדוד ברכי נפשי אשא אדוני וכל קרובי אס שם קדשו בו מועל בשץ ומסוזך הגדול מכבוד שמך הגיבור לנצח והנורא בנורותיך, המלך היושב על כיסא רם וניצב.
Yesharim Tisromam Uvdivrei Tzadikot Tisbarach Shochenat Marom Vekadosh Shemo Shochenat Marom Vekadosh Shemo
Uvilshon Hasidim Hasidot Titkadash Titkadash Uvikerem Kedoshim Tithalal Tithalal Shochenat Marom Vekadosh Shemo Shochenat Marom Vekadosh Shemo.
מקלון רבבון, עמך בית ישראל, רינה יתבקשי מחמקנו בכל דור ודור, שכן חובת כל יצרים לבניך ידענו להורינו, להודות עליה לשבח לפאר, לרומם דברך לעלה ולקלס, על כל דברי שירה ותשמחו, דוד בן ישי, עבדך משיחך, שכנן מרום וקדוש שמו שכנן מרום וקדוש וקדוש שמו. Please rise if you are able, as we conclude Psukei de Zimra, the verses of praise and pruning. Yishtabach shimecha, lo ad malekenu, el melech hagadol v'kadosh, v'ashamayim v'atzkidechane Adon Elohim, v'lereinu shu shlach alav zimra ozim mimshala, netzach gidula gurati la v'tifer kidusha malchos, brachos v'hodaos mi'ata, ויד עולם ברוך, אתה אדוני אל מלך כנומת ישבחוס, אל ההודוס, אדון הנפלאוס, ריבון כל המעשים, אדון כל הנשמות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה מלך אל חי העולמים. Chatzi Kaddish, everyone, to pause between prayers.
גדל ויתקדש שמי רבה,
Amen.
ולמד בחירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובימיכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה וזמן קרי באמרו.
Amen. יש מרבה מבורך לעולם מעלמיה יתברך, וישתבח ויתבהר ותרומם ויתנשא, יתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי דקודשה.
בריחו.
בריחו לעלמין כל ברכסה ושינסה, tush b'chasa v'nechimasa, damiran be'alma, and let us say, Amen. Good Shabbos, everyone. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos.
Shabbat shalom.
So we hope that at this point we can check our davening thermometer, our prayer temperature, see if it's, a little bit warmer, a little bit more open, right? Whether or not the work of blessing and radical amazement, recognizing blessing and gratitude, and also, wow, hallelujah, ashrei, mizmoshir, that it's like you're feeling a little bit more of the spiritual blood as it were moving through your spiritual limbs, more connected. So it's so beautiful to pray with you, Rabbi Rivera, and with you, Maya Zinkow. So geschmack, there's no better word, geschmack, it's yummy. So friends, we have a lot of you here think that this next part of our tefillah service, our prayer service, is not part of the davening, but it is. It's the inner place, what the Slonim Rebbe called your inner minyan. We give each other permission to say, lift me with your presence. Without you here, my davening would be a little bit less. And so we invite you in these breakout rooms, which are really break-in rooms. We invite you as we kind of divide the group here, about 97 cameras or so, into smaller groups where we can say hello to one another and just wish each other a good Shabbos and take 3 minutes. And if you feel comfortable sharing also on this week of Vayakel Pekudei, the name of the portion is "And They Gathered," what it is that you miss about gathering and what you love at this moment about gathering. Maybe one or both in a brief saying hello, which is a kind of inner barchuing. We'll see you in 4 minutes. Sing with us, everyone. Ay, na, na, lay, na, lay, na. Ay, na, na, lay, na. Ya, na, lay, na, lay, lay. Ay, na, 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 da, 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 da. Please rise, everyone, as you come back into the Zoom room, and find also all the friends that might have been with you, and to do a kind of facial, kind of a face baruch, seeing the faces of everyone, as many people as you can. And this is a good moment, if you've had your camera off, to just briefly put it back on for a moment so that we can see you, and then you can go right back to your own, as it were, talit over your face, closing the camera, as Maya leads us in this call and response baruch Hu this morning.
Baruch Hu es Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Borach Le'olam Va'ed Dididam Dam Dididai.
Hiram Maira Hirai Hayam Maira Baruch Adonai Amvorach Leolam Va'ed Hiram Maira Hirai Hayarairai Hamarairai Hayavabaira Shalom, uvores hakol, the creator of light, we light our lives with.
Calling all the holy ones, all the cohorts that carry us, all the cohorts that carry us from place to place. Holy ones, blessed be. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Adonai Tzebaot. The whole world is filled with your glory. The whole world is filled with your glory. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Adonai Tzebaot. The whole world is filled with your glory. The whole world is filled with your glory. New light carries us, our people, to this fountain of blessing. Or Hadash, Al Zion Ta'ir, ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני, יוצר המאורות. O fountain of blessings, you bring us closer like Shekhinah, crafting these multitudes of lights.
With a great expansive love, Yoter Midai, you've loved us. Ahava Rabba, Aftanu, Ahava Rabba, Aftanu, Ahava Rabba. Aftanu, Ahava Rabba, Aftanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Eloheinu, with a great expansive love. Oh, Aftanu, Ahava Rabba, Aftanu, Ahava Rabba, Aftanu, Ahava Rabba, Aftanu, Ve'arinenu, B'toratecha, V'dabek libeinu, B'mitzvotecha, B'didai-dai-dai-dai. Oh, ve'avienu le'shalom, from the four corners of the earth. Your love fills the earth. We gather together those four corners to declare your holy oneness. In that oneness, there's such expansive love. Baruch atah Adonai habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Ve'afta, in return, you shall love et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha ubechol nafshecha ubechol meodecha. Ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom, on this day upon your heart. Ve'shinantam levanecha ve'dibarta bam ve'shivtecha bevetecha uvelechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha ve'ayu letotafot bein einecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha. In all of your journeys, bechol maseinu, bechol masehem, you shall write it as a sign upon your doorpost. V'haraf Adonai b'chem v'atzar t'shamayim v'lo yeh matar v'anmal. Somtem et divrei v'chem v'acham sh'tam liyot מיד לדבר ביניכם, ולימדתם אותם, את בניכם לדבר בם, בראשיתך בביתך ולבטך בדרך, בשוכבך ובקומך. When you lie down and when you rise up, when you lie down and see the pillar of fire, and when you rise up and see the pillar of cloud, to remind you of my love. וכתבתם על הארץ, ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת להם ועשו להם ציצית, על כנפי בידיהם לדורתם ונתנו על ציצית, הכנף בציץ תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית, וראיתם אותם, וזכרתם בכל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם לא תצורו אחרי לבבכם ואחריכם אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתיכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Asher bara Elohim lasot. Shabbat is called Asher bara Elohim, the world that was created by Elohim lasot, in order to continue making, producing. The last letters of the three words bara Elohim lasot spell the word emet, truth. The truth is that the story that each and every one of us brings with us, we are the bridge between the freedom from Egypt and the freedom of the world. We have to continue each and every day building the Mishkan, building the tabernacle with love, awareness, kindness, and compassion. Ya'alevechem emet is also our signature, is the truth from beginning to middle and to the end. Tilos le'el elyon. Baruch hu mevarach Moshe u'Miriam u'bnei Yisrael echanu shira v'simcha rabba ve'ameru chulam. Please rise if you're able. Didn't I lie, mi chamocha Eli Madonai, mi kamocha nedan bakodesh, nora tehilos, o sefele, o tekino, o sefele, shira chadasha, shibechu geulim, le'yeshimecha, asfas hayam, yachad together, no ve'amer, adonai, le'olam ba'ed. Ay, lay, 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 lay. Ay, lay, lay, ay, lay, 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 lay. Ay, lay, lay, lay. Ay, lay, lay, lay. Ay, lay, lay, lay. May, may, ay. Ba, yam, bam, ba, yam, ba, yay, yay. Ba, yay, yay, ba, yam, ba. Ba, yay, yay. Ay, nay, nay, nay. Ay, nay, 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 nay. Ma be'ezat Yisrael, uvdechinu mecha, Yehuna ve'Yisrael, go aleinu Adonai tzvaot shemo, kedosh Yisrael. Ay, nay, nay, bayim, bayay, ay, 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 bayim, nay, nay. Ay, na, 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 amaya, amaya, ay, 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 yalay, yalay, Baruch atah havaya, Go'al Yisrael. We begin Amidah together, everyone, as we take our 3 steps backwards into our ancestors, those who came before, and whose energies and whose gifts we bring forward to bring about a world of redemption on this Shabbat. Adonai Svatay Tiftach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei imotenu v'avoteinu Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ואלוהי יעקב, האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכה חסדי אמהות ואבות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומשה ומגן, ברוך אתה, אדוני, מגן אברהם לעזרת שרה, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה משימת הרב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל לחיים מחסד, מחיי מסית, ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים, ורופא חולים, ומתיר עשורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עופר. מי כמוך מלגי מורייס, ומי די מלך מלך, ממיס ומחיה, ומצמיח ישוע ונאמן אתה לחיוס משים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המסים.
לקדש את שמך
את שמך
לעולם כשם
שמקדישים
אותו בשמי מרום ככתוב על יד נביאך ידם וירא יהיו Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Melech Haaretz kevodo.
אז בקורש גדול, אדיר וחזק כמשל ממקום, מתנסים, לעומת צרפים, לעומתם, ברוך יומנו.
קומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך כמככים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון, בקרוב בימינו, לעולם ועד תשכון. תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור ולנצח נצח נצחים. בשירי עוזך, על ידי דוד משיח צדקך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, בשטרך אלוהינו, מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
And we invite you all to receive Torah this morning in our silent reflections as you go to a place of connection. Yismach Moshe b'matnat chelko. Nidai dai nadai nai. Nidai dai nadai nai. Nidai nai. Hey nai ya 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 da da dai. Nidai nai nadai nai. Nidai nai na na nai. Nidai bye bye. Ay, 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 dinenai, ay, ay, dinenai, 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 nananai, dinenai, nay, 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 dinenai, nay, 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 dinenai, nay, ay, 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 dinenai, nanai, nananai, nay, ay, nay, 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 dinenai, nananai, nay. Nini nai 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 Mita heli beinu Mita heli beinu Mita heli beinu Am nechame emez mitom heli beinu
בטהר ליבנו, בטהר ליבנו, בטהר ליבנו, לעבדך באמת. די ידה די ידה די, ידה די 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 די, בטהר ליבנו, די 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 די, שבת קודשך, שבת קודשך. Yai yada yada da yada da yai dai 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 yai dai 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 yai dai 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 yai.
The Mayala from Think of, did it not?
Hey,
No, v'tahir libeinu le'avdecha be'emes, with truth, with asher bara Elohim la'asot, with the truth of each and every one of us as a place where we are deployed to make God's presence felt, make love's presence clear, make compassion's presence clear. In April, we're going to be having on April 9th our Shabbat of the Child. It'll be the second year that we're lifting up children and the importance of Shmirat Yiladim, of being not just Shomrei Adama, but Shomrei Yiladim, that we have to safeguard the most precious and vulnerable resource of humanity, which is the next generation. So for the blessing of all the children in our community, if you have children that are close by, kind of pull them in. If they don't want to, I get it. I'm not even going to try. But in my heart and mind, I'm energetically have my hands placed on my children and on, the truth be told, on all of my ancestors too, when they were children and what they brought to me. And also in the future, my descendants, God willing, the blessings that I hope to give to them, that they'll carry with them. And you can do that too at this moment, like the 7 branches of the menorah. Extend your limbs and find an energetic place, a vessel for to receive the Yisimcha Elohim, the children's blessing.
Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha, v'chunecha yisa Adonai panav elecha, v'yasem lecha shalom, v'yasem lecha shalom, 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 v'yasem lecha shalom. May these hands reach out to our children on the east side, in Tom's River, in Brooklyn, in Maryland, in New Paltz. Where else are our children?
On the Upper West Side in Manhattan, and all over this land, because this land was made for you and me, and for them, and we, the people, a blessing on all of our heads. Can imagine the divine hands reaching out, as it were, from heaven, and not only us blessing our children, but as children of the Most High, each and every one of us being blessed as well. God saying, be. And in so many profound ways, what a bracha. Yasem lahem shalom, 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 shalom. And as we come to a pause from this beautiful prayer service, we'll turn to turn to Torah in a moment. But first, the Kaddish Shalem, the Kaddish, the Aramaic pause prayer that allows us to say, send it where it needs to go. Yitkanal ve'yitkadash shemei Rabban.
Amen.
V'yalma dirach yiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh v'chayechon v'yomechon ובחיי לכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן הקורי ואימרו.
Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach. Le'alam alal me'almaya yitbarach. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ותעלה שמי דקודשה. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמרן ועלמה באמרו.
אמן. תיקבע צלותנו ואותנו כל ישראל קדמון ושמיה ואמרו. אמן. יש שלום הרב אמין שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום ירממיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו amen.
Amen. Please rise, everyone, if you're able, as we open the ark and invite Torah into our community and into our hearts. Ein kamocha b'Elohim Adonai.
אין כמוך באלוהים אדוני ואין כמעשיך מלכותך מלכות כל עמים וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך אדוני מלך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. על הרחמים מיטיב ברצונך את ציון תבנה חומות ירושלים כי בך לבד בטחנו מלך העולם ונישא אדון עולמים. ויהי בנשוא אהרון ויאמר משה קומה אדוני ויפוצו אויביך וינוסו משנאיך מפניך כי מציון תצא תורה כי מציון תצא תורה ודבר אדוני מירושלים ברוך שנתן תורה תורה ברוך שנתן תורה תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו. בריך שמי
Ve'anarachetz Ve'li sheme Kadisha Kadisha yakiram Anaimai Tushbechan Ve'anarachetz Ve'anarachetz Veli sheme Kadisha, Kadisha yakira, Ana emar tushbechan. Yehi rava kadamach, v'tiftach libai b'oraita, v'tash l'mishal libai, v'liba l'chol amach Yisrael, l'tav u'lechayim v'lishlam. Amen. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Adelu Adonai iti, Onera Mima Sheyach Edav, Lechang Adonai Adonai Agivah V'Netzavot, Yichol B'Shamayim U'Va'aretz, Lech Adonai Malach HaMinaseh Lechol Erosh. Romemu,
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 Adonai Eloheinu, Ve'ishtachavu,
Veishtachavu,
Ve'ishtachavu,
Veishtachavu,
Behar Kaddish, Romemu,
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 Adonai Eloheinu, Ve'ishtachavu L'Adam HaKadosh, Ki Kadosh, Adonai Eloheinu.
Romemu, 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 Adonai Eloheinu. Romemu, 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 Adonai Eloheinu. Hikadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu. Yamai nay 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 nay. Hey nay 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 nay. Ki metzion tetzei Torah. Undevar Adonai Mirushalayim. Hey nay, hey nay nay, hey nay 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 nay. Yomai nay 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 nay. Yadai, yadidam nay 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 nay. Hum nay 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 nay. Hey nay 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 nay.
Yisrael ve'oraita ve'kodsha berichu chadu Yisrael ve'oraita ve'kodsha berichu chadu Torah ora Torah ora Hallelujah Torah ora, Torah ora, hallelujah, hallelujah. Torah ora, Torah ora, hallelujah. Torah ora, Torah ora, hallelujah. Shabbos, friends, good Shabbos, good Shabbos. All of the midrashim, all of the Jewish expansions upon Torah, both filling in what is not visible or explaining that which is, or playing with text. Midrash is also playing with a text that is infinitely meaningful, which unleashes infinite creativity. Almost kiseder, like as a rule, midrash begins with the word patach, to open. Patach. Meaning someone who comes to do midrash opens the book, and then they open the verse. It's kind of this opening, right? The opening. It also, of course, is very connected with tefillah, because tefillah is Hashem Svatai Tiftach. So when we come to Torah, we say, open my mouth. To tefillah, rather, we say, open, God, my mouth, so that I might speak the right words or say what's from my heart. And we say the same thing with Torah. Adonai Svatai Tiftach, Ofi agi Toratecha. Open our hearts and our wisdom so that we might speak Torah, right, today together. So patach, open up. Let's open. This morning's first aliyah will be from this morning's Vayakel Pekudei, which is the parsha that is ending the book of Shemot, the book of Exodus, the second of the 5 books of Moshe, chapter 40. The last chapter is, right, the Mishkan, the tabernacle. It's ready for business, right? By the end of the second book of Torah, the Jewish people have been transformed from a group of slaves to a group of really ambitious builders. Some really good architecture going up. They've managed to recreate the world. The microcosmos that is known as the tabernacle, right? This portable sanctuary in the desert, this hotspot, this Wi-Fi spot for Sinai, it's a Sinai connection, extension, is ornate, it is beautiful, it is full of the Jews' generosity, the Israelites' generosity. It is built through their giving and their continued giving and the giving from the heart and the wisdom and so on. And one particular part of the tabernacle, the Mishkan, which became, of course, very, very much a meme in Jewish history. Like this is an emblem, a symbol of both loss and renewal. The centerpiece of the Mishkan, the centerpiece is the menorah, is the seven-branched menorah, right? And when we even see menorah, right, we think menorah. Not only do we think, of course, of Hanukkah, but we also think of what the state of Israel eventually reappropriated as a symbol, as it were, of their return to Jewish sovereignty. It became, of course, a symbol of degradation throughout our exile. The arch of Titus, right, with the symbol of our captivity, that the menorah, the centerpiece of this jewel, as it were, this beautiful symbol of light and connection, a perpetual perennial light was lit, right, throughout the menorah's existence when it was taken into captivity, as it were, and stolen away throughout Jewish history. Whether that's true or not, throughout Jewish history, it became an expression of our loss, the loss of that sacred center, and a yearning to as it were, have our menorah back, have our light back, as it were. This morning, we're going to read about the construction of that menorah, and we'll be reminded of its beauty, right, of its goblets and of its ornate almond-shaped features. And one of the things that I'd like to lift up in this open up is one feature of the menorah that is, right, is maybe the most allegorized piece of the menorah, which is that it's miksha achat. It has to be hammered out, right, from one piece of gold. Miksha achat. From the base to the limbs, as it were, these 6 limbs with the 7th one, all of it has to be made of one piece of metal, unalloyed. It isn't one piece taken, another piece taken. And many of the commentators who read this say that ultimately the menorah in its, this is at least a Kabbalistic read, a later read, but a Kabbalistic read, is that the menorah comes to represent the 6-dimensional universe, meaning, or the 3-dimensional universe has 6 directions, the 6-directional universe. That it comes to represent that reality is a seamless coat. That to some extent, the reading of the menorah this morning is an enactment and a prayer that we are able to see that which seems to be disparate, that which seems to be split from, that which seems to be disconnected, and like the word miksha also means kasher, right? The Midrash says that Moses had particular difficulty with the menorah, and in the Midrash it says that he was kasher, like he couldn't get it. It was kasher. It was a kasha. It was just didn't grok it, and he kept forgetting. Like God would show him the menorah, then he would forget. Makshev v'shochech, makshev v'shochech. He kind of like this thing that is clear to him, and then he loses it. It's like difficult, clear, then he loses it. And I think that speaks to a kind of a difficulty in holding it together, right? In being able to make sense of so many pieces that come together in the center of our lives, in the center of our reality at this moment. And so I wanted to open up an image now and invite people to share about the image of the menorah as one piece, that it has to be beaten, as it were. Makshen means to be beaten from one piece, not alloyed. And how that comes to represent kind of an image in our lives of like being able to see light that seems to be from different places, pieces that seem to be, culture that seems to be fragmenting, and having a desire and a yearning to have a vision of what binds it all together, What is it that holds it all in one place? Like the multi-limbed expression of Patanjali's yoga or other expressions of multiplicity within unity. How might the menorah speak to you at this moment? I'd like to open that up for your midrashim. What is the menorah saying to you today as we read it? Make sure that you make it out of one unalloyed piece of gold. Aaron, go ahead.
Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom. The first thing that comes to my mind is that unalloyed gold is a terribly difficult metal to work with. It's very heavy, it's very soft. The reason your jewelry is made out of alloyed gold is so it won't fall apart. A menorah made out of unalloyed gold would not last very long. It would be extremely fragile. And that, I think, is not a mistake by the people who wrote this. It is a real signal of the difficulty of being in the desert and being Jewish, and it's really quite a lovely metaphor, I think, for what our people were facing long ago.
And is it also what we face now in some way for you or anyone you know? In what way is it?
Certainly, we are in the desert for a long time now. It's not lost on me that it's exactly a year ago this week that we all started meeting this way. Right.
It's really to bring in the difficulty in making something that endures, that it with such beauty, but is so right. I'm looking. I didn't even notice that I have a. Oh my goodness, I forgot about this. I mean, this is a Chanukiah. This is not a menorah, right? This is a Chanukiah. So it's 9 instead of 7, right? So the centerpiece, right? That the kasheh also can mean brittle, like it can be easily. It's like Moshe's mind was breaking each time he tried to think about it. It's like Moshe in the Midrash. Moshe's like, I don't really get it, and then he would get it, and then he would forget, and which speaks to this kind of ephemeral, this fragility, this deep fragility. And I love that you brought us here in that sense, like it's a year ago, and like the sense of what's being broken, what could easily be broken, that unity is so easily broken, or that connection can so easily be kasheh and broken, and it's also difficult. And so you're just bringing that into the room, Aaron, with your midrash and your Torah. Thank you, brother. And seeing that station behind you is really giving me, putting me into a New York state of mind.
Mm. This is our neighborhood one stop. Yeah. We used to take it to come to shul every week.
And you will again, God willing. Nehemiah.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom, Kehila Kedusha. Last time I stood in front of the menorah, in front of the Knesset, there was a great Swami Vishnudevananda standing on his head, demonstrating for peace and unity. So that was a symbol. So we were looking at each other like that. For me, the menorah is a really hard one, but possible. It's really it was a symbol for the 7 lights, which Mother Teresa of Avila called the 7 mansions that exist within us, in the center of the 10 Sephiras. And maybe the temple that Nehemiah built, the second one, was destroyed. So we can focus now on the temple inside, building the light inside, and of course, building Romemu, another, what they call Mikdash Me'at, small Mikdash, but it's still, it's big enough for me. And the last thing I want to say about the desert that we are standing in, the desert is Midbar, it's Midaber. In this time that we are going through challenge, hitting bottom, this is a time that God speaks to us more than any other time for those who are ready to listen. Because we are not in the common place, we are in a place of world crisis. So many people are waking up.
Yes.
And I'm one of them.
Okay, Nehemiah. Thank you so much. Beautiful
Lovely.
for sharing your beautiful Torah. And I want to invite people. We have some minutes, so I really would love to hear some people who are generally not likely to step forward, apropos of our earlier open book, to step in and to perhaps share your Torah. And maybe it's exactly what you want to share, even if you don't know exactly what it is. It might be exactly what other people need to hear this morning. So I want to invite that as well. And Elliot, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I love this image of the menorah, being made, of only one piece, and for me, I guess what it speaks to is, my own striving, and what I believe, we all need to strive to understand is that it's all one piece, it's all one light, all of us, all sentient beings are all part of that one light. There's no separation. And I heard somewhere, and Rabbi, you might remember where I heard it, about the idea of treating others as if they were your own limb, as if they were your own limb. And so that, that's my prayer, okay, that I and all of us can become more conscious of that connection, that we're all part of one unbroken light.
So there's a story. Thank you for your Torah, Elliot. There's a story about one of the great tzaddik and one of the great righteous and holy, individuals who lived in the earlier part of the 20th century. And he was contemporaneous with Rav Kook, the great chief rabbi first chief rabbi of Palestine. And they were walking one day, these two holy men, and for some reason, Aryeh Levin, who was the great tzaddik, in his own mind, a great righteous and holy and sensitive soul, for some reason, the story doesn't say why he did this, but he reached out and he plucked like a leaf off of a tree, and Rav Kook screamed. Rav Kook screamed, like naturally. It wasn't like he wasn't trying to make a big show. He just, Aryeh Levin said that he let out a shriek. And the sensitivity, it's also another story. The same tzaddik Aryeh Levin said that when he went to the doctor with his wife, because her foot was hurting her, he accidentally said to the doctor, apparently, our foot is hurting us.
Mm-hmm.
And so you speak to this kind of the seamless coding, aspirational, right? Even Moshe Rabbeinu, even Moses, our teacher, wasn't able to fully get it and hold it. It was, as Aaron said, a fragile awareness that had to be, of course, and in our right for us to know that we don't always feel that seamless connection. And so thank God we have law that is ever evolving, hopefully, to act as if when we don't feel it and see it, right? Act as if it is our own, right? The danger of mine, of ownership, is like that in some sense, right? We have to, and in some sense we don't. And that sense of disconnection that can come with proprietary, ourselves, it's us, our body, but like all of us together as one body. Right? What is harmful to your friend, do not do to yourself. Don't do to another. That golden rule is rooted in this deep respect for our interdependence, our interconnection. And so thank you for your Torah this morning, Elliot. I don't know who this is, so I might get your name wrong, but I hope you'll correct me. It's Laudi?
Close. It's Lodi.
Lodi. Okay, Lodi. Thank you for being
Shalom.
giving. Go ahead, please.
I'm joining you from London in England. What came for me was the idea of the menorah is that I am a lump of alloyed gold, that we all are a lump of alloyed gold, unalloyed gold in God's creation, and I feel like we're kind of bashed out by life into the many arms, the many parts of ourselves, and that again, what Aaron said about the fragility, that seems to resonate with that too, because our lives are so fragile. It's a gift, and it's fragile. And then also it linked with the idea of the 7 mansions of the soul as well, because it's like we're shaped by life into the 7 mansions from this first principle of just a lump of unalloyed gold, and it's when we've been bashed into our seven mansions, our seven our shape, then we can give light. So those were the thoughts I had.
So Lodi from London, thank you so much for sharing your Torah with us this morning. And in fact, Baruch Shekivant, that was where I was going to go in my own adding here, which is that the allegory of this unity is one place, right? Interdependence, co-arising, the unit of experience of all of humanity, as it were, in all of the world, all of the cosmos. In Rav Kook's writings, that's the highest song of creation, is the song of all of creation singing one song together with different parts. But the Buddhist reading of this, and it's found also in the sources, is that also we are, of course, we, including the beauty of us, is also miksha, comes from much suffering and difficulty. It comes from much being, as you said, Lodi, hammered out. And then that too can become a source of illumination. From our trials and tribulations, we can offer great light, and we become a vessel for that light. And this is not to say that one should and has to suffer, but we can see that this is the way of it, right? The way of the pearls of who we become are often from the grains of sand that are irritants. And so too with our own lump of gold, as you said, our own precious original nature is also beaten in a way of like kasher, it's difficult. And we also grow on those edges, and we bring great light as well, and can. And so that's another beautiful, beautiful Torah from you, Lodi, for the first time, bringing your beautiful Torah from London. Thank you so much. We're going to take, we're taking three more, everybody. And Joni is the last one, so I'm sorry. So it's going to be Neil, Brother Neil, Bob, and Emily, and then Joni. Go ahead, Neil.
Thanks so much, Rabbi Ingber, for this challenge on the menorah, and touched really today by the intercontinental sharing today. Just beautiful. I want to share that this week, bringing this into today, that this is the week that Operation Tzur Yisrael ended, which brought 2,000 of our brethren, many of them children, from Ethiopia to Israel. And just want to share that the beauty of this for us in the community is that we can reach out and recognize our sisters and brothers in other continents. And touched also by the last sharing, because in the United Kingdom, a lot of the support for the Ethiopian community has come from Mekada, which is based in London. So now, as we move forward, realizing the suffering of the community in Ethiopia and the possibility of their rescue, I just feel the pain of the menorah in the suffering, and also the potential light. So I bring that to the community as because Romemu has been, for me, the place that opened up the struggle of our sisters and brothers in Ethiopia, because we welcomed them to speak in front of the community. So thank you for that. And Vayachel, the last piece, and just in terms of this particular opportunity to gather the community so that we can be one, just touches me. Thanks for letting me share.
And it touches me that you brought that, Brother Neil, because Vayakel is, as you said, it's that Moses brought each and every one of them together, right? And said, you're all a part of this community. And one of the blessings you're saying also at this moment is that we are able in some way to more seamlessly connect with the seamlessness of connection, that they're there, and we're here, but we're connected with them. And to bring them here into our midst also to raise up that awareness of their plight, right? And to raise up the awareness of their koshi, of their difficulty, right? It's really moving and very important. And so I want to bless you that you continue to do that. I know that it's like their plight is so connected with your own karma, your own tikkun, and you bring us that way with your rebbitude in that way. We follow you, Neil. So Baruch Hashem, thank you for that Torah. Thank you for that Torah. We go to I think it's Bob. I can't see Emily today, but it's Bob. Bob, please share your Torah with us.
Shabbat Shalom. I don't want to skip over the obvious.
if God was going to come to the Mishkan, there would be amazing light. But still, we have to build this thing so that, in other words, the vitalness of us participating.
Yes.
But now to your point, which was about it's all hammered out of one thing. It's distributed. In the technology of their day, you could get more light with 7 little vases of oil than you could in one. And that still applies to us. When you really want effective solar power, you put a whole farm of PV panels. When you really want high volume wind energy, you put up many things. So a lot of that hasn't changed. The importance of distribution to scalable production of light.
Distribution to scalable production of light. There you go, everybody. Menorah as distribution to scalable production of light. And Bob, you know from last night and from this morning, both last night's sermon and this morning's open book, that the entire Mishkan project is a project of distribution for a scalable production of holiness, right? The Mishkan project is all hands in. And then there was too much, but even that was like, as we said, for future generations to add their piece to it. And in this Torah reading, to add our piece. So yeah, one light would be great, but make 7, distribute it and make it scalable, because we want to produce a lot of good, divine and holy and human energy. Love it. Distribution for scalable production of light, the menorah. Love it. And Joni, bring us into our final moment here.
Well, I just want to say, Moda Ani, I'm so thrilled to be here. Normally I'm not on Saturdays, so it's just been so wonderful for me. And I wanted to speak at Open Book, but it was too many people. So for me, yeah, I mean, we spoke about how Hashem made all of us from the same piece of cloth, just like the menorah made out of the same piece of gold. And so we're all one to begin with, and then we fragment off and, bring our own gifts or whatever. But I really wanted to speak at Open Book about, making room at the table. And dear Rebbe, you always make room at the table for everyone and value everyone in the same way, whatever your gifts are and whatever you're bringing and wherever you are on your journey. And, it just touches my heart because you make everyone feel so valued and that their gifts are so important, and one isn't more so and one isn't less than. And I've had issues with feeling less than, so it's just been, to say Moda Ani is just, it's not even enough for me. But I just wanted you to know that today's been such a treat, and grateful and thankful am I for having Romemu and you in my life.
So Romemu, I always say Romemu has a me in it and a you in it, right? So Rom, me and you. So, and Joni, we bless you and we see you, and not just me, not David Ingber, but the whole Roma community, people who are here for the first time, people who have been here for a long time, that your courage to show up each and every day for a class that sometimes can be, you said, a challenge, kasher, but you come and you sit with it. And from that difficulty, you also find community of people who see you and care about you, and also you bring your wisdom as you did just now, and as you've brought in all of the classes that you've ever shared in. So I continue to bless you to share and to bring your gift, and to all of us too. And so thank you to Joni for closing, as it were, our open up with that tefillah, with that prayer for all of us to be in that way and to model this scalable for the sake of production of energy, that all of us are menorah, as Nehemiah said. We have these 7 lights, our eyes, our ears. My son Orzi the other day, whose name is Or, his name is Light, and I said to him, Or, you lost that loving feeling. Oh, that loving feeling. I said, I haven't seen your smile in a while. Where'd your smile go? And he said to me, he said, he looked at me and he went, and I said, oh, there's the light. You're my little light. So I want to lift up 2 moments here as we invite Alyssa Marco to bless us and also to read from Torah this morning. The first one is, of course, connected to the unity, this principle of miksha achat. We're all of this, as Joni said, one cloth, cut from the same cloth, which points to a yearning in us to feel connected to feel the connection that we already have, but to feel it, especially in moments where, like Moshe, we forget. It's difficult to us. And the second kavanah this morning for Open Up is from Lodi, who channeled the great Rebbes of Ger, who say, look, listen, just like the olives that are also katit la'maor, that are crushed to give light, the light vessel, which is called the menorah, is also made of a lot of hammering, as it were, of that beautiful golden unalloyed beginning. And that may God bless all of us at this moment to be able to make light from the koshi, the difficulties that we have now in our lives in different places and different times, and to be able to see it as part of that one seamless narrative of offering our gifts to the world and bringing them forth. So if that speaks to you this morning, we invite you to either metaphorically or literally stand with Torah this morning. Ya'amdu for the first aliyah in this Kila Kidosha.
For the blessing. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Im Kol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
ויעש המנורה זהב טהור, מקשה עשה את המנורה ירחה וקנה, גביעיה, כפתוריה ופרחיה ממנה היו. ושישה קנים יוצאים מצידיה, שלושה קני המנורה מצידה האחד, ושלושה קני מנורה מצידה השני. שלושה גביעים משוקדים בקנה האחד, כפתור ופרח, ושלושה גביעים משוקדים בקנה אחד, כפתור ופרח, כן לששת הקנים היוצאים מן המנורה. ובמנורה 4 גביעים משוקדים, כפתוריה ופרחיה. בכפתור תחת שני הקנים ממנה, בכפתור תחת שני הקנים ממנה, בכפתור תחת שני הקנים ממנה, לששת הקנים היוצאים ממנה. כפתוריהם וקנותם ממנה היו, כולה מקשה אחת זהב טהור. ויעש את נורותיה 7, ומלקחיה ומחתותיה זהב טהור, כיכר זהב טהור עשה אותה, ואת כל כליה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו, ברוכה תהיה השכינה נותנת התורה.
אמן. מי שברך אבותינו ואמותינו, הוא יברך את כל אלו שעלו לכבוד המקום לכבודת וכבוד השבס, החודש. יזכר זה הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמרנו הצלים מכל צער וצוקה, מכל נגע ומחלה, וישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשי ידיהם. May the source of life bless all of those who came forward this morning to stand with Torah, to honor Shabbat and the Holy One of Blessing, in invoking and praying for and really like participating in the story of the menorah. The story of both reminders that even the greatest amongst us forgot this deep lesson of interconnectivity and how hard it is sometimes to piece together and to put it all back together, as it were, including the cracks and the breaks and the Humpty Dumpty, right? It's hard to put it back together into one place, but the Torah reminds us, Miksha Achat, it's one, right? The flowers, the beauty, and sometimes that which is difficult. And also the sufferings in our second reading, a blessing for all of us to be able to bring it to its root, that in the world of the 7 days of creation, the 6 directions, as it were, and all of the sevens, as it were, the whole catastrophe is essentially, it's grist for the mill. It's sometimes not easy to see that. It's not easy. But bringing in the Torah of Bob this morning, sometimes when we are together, we can get it together. When it's not just one, but a collective that can generate more energy, more light, more illumination. It helps to lift us in Vayakhel. So brachas to every one of you. And to Alyssa Marco, who came to read Torah beautifully this morning. And as the gabbai of our community, like the head gabbai, the gabbai, like everything you do, Alyssa, is just so much about community, whether it's your work in the world or about this community. And so we bless you that God willing, in your own personal life, but also collectively, we'll be watching you walking up and down the aisles soon, giving out honors to people, and reading with your own unique yad in our Sefer Torah. May it come soon, and let us all say Amen. There it is. I see it now. Okay, that's awesome. And taking the boys on a motorcycle ride. Okay, everybody, for the second aliyah, Yamot, for the second aliyah, Harav Yishai Eliyahu ben Avram V'Kela, Leah, a friend, Rabbi Jesse, who is a Gen Fellow in 6th and I saw you here last week, brother. It's so good to see you here today. For the second aliyah.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Teyas et mizbach haketoret atzei shitim ama arko ve'ama rochbo ravua ve'ama komato mimenu karnotav liatzaf oto zahav tahor et kagu ve'et ketoratav saviv et kirnatav v'asalo zir zahav saviv ushte tabot zahav oselo mita tachat lezero al shetei zelotav al shenei tzitaav levadim laseit oto bahem ve'as et habadim atzei shitim ve'atzaf otam zahav Hayas et shemen hamashcha kodesh
Hamishcha
kodesh ve'et ketoret hasamim tahor maaseh rokeach.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yishaberach Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Yivarech et Harav Yishai Eliyahu ben Avram V'Kela Leah Babu Shalal Lechvod HaMakom Lechvod HaShabbat Yischar Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yishmereu Yatzilin Mikol Tzara V'Tzukah Mikol Nega U'Machala Yishlach Bracha V'Atzlacha B'Chol Ma'aseh Yadav. It is so good to see you, brother, in our midst during a difficult year for everyone, and now in particular a difficult moment also as you lost your grandmother. It was such a wonderful thing to see you in our community last week, and we just bless you with a sense of community, with a sense of connection, and even in the midst of grief and loss, with a sense of being held by family and friends and others, and that the memory of your grandmother is alive and well in you, and in particular this particular aliyah that lifts up the power of the ketoret, which is always connected, as we know in the yogic tradition, all of the incense is connected to memory, to the olfactory. And so I think it's a way of elevating on the altar the powerful, as it were, the aroma of memory and the aroma of cherished memory and cherished connection. So we bless you, Yishai, right? We bless you, brother, in being here in this community with health, happiness, and joy and connection. And we hope that you'll come back and maybe you'll teach something at Roma. We don't know, right? It's so good to see you here.
Yeah.
And we all say Amen. But before you go, can I ask you, Rabbi, maybe you say one thing about your grandmother. Maybe invite her, say something to connect us with her.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. The bracha that I try to carry a lot that she gave to me was not hiding from all the messiness of life, and just really like acknowledging head on that we're all hammered in a way, with not with any like pretentiousness and not with any like naive sentimentality, but like that's what we're all made of. We're all made out of that kind of soft gold, and that kind of ability to see that's what we're all made of just made so much light shine from her.
Her name was Rachel, was Rachel?
Yeah.
So her neshama should have an aliyah, mamash. Thank you for bringing your light, Rabbi. For the third and final aliyah, everyone, we're calling forward this morning. Let's see, 1 second. We're going to call you Marcel for the first ali for the blessing this morning, given that it's a very special occasion that Rabbi Rivera will speak to. But Ta'amdi Miriam Batsara for the third and final aliyah.
Baruch Adonai Mevorach. Baruch Adonai Mevorach Olam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim venatan lanu et torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
ויעש את מזבח העולה עצי שיטים 5 אמות אורכו ו5 אמות רוחבו רבוע ו3 אמות קומתו. ויעש קרנותיו אל הבא פינותיו ממנו היו קרנותיו ויצף אותו נחושת. ויעש את כל כלי המזבח, את הסירות ואת היין ואת המזרקות, את המזלגות ואת המחטות, כל כלי עשה נחושת. ויעש על המזבח מחבר מעשה רשת נחושת, קרקו בו מלמעלת הציון. ויצוק 4 טבעות ו4 הקצות למחבר הנחושת בתים לבדים. ויעש את הבדים עצי שיטים ויצף אותה נחושת. ויבא את הבדים בטבעות על צלות המזבח לשאת אותו בחמה, נבוב לוחות עשה אותו. ויעש את הכיעור נחושת ואת קנו נחושת במערות הצובעות אשר צבעו בתחת אוכל מועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נתן לתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. מי שברך אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב ואימותינו שרה רבקה רחל ולאה, הוא יברך היא תברך את מרים בת שרה שעלתה היום לכבוד המקום, לכבוד התורה ולכבוד השבת. הקדוש ברוך הוא תברך אותה ואת כל משפחתה ותשלח ברכה בהצלחה בכל מעשה ידיה עם כל ישראל אחיו ואחיותיה ונאמר אמן.
אמן.
May the Holy One, blessed be, bless you, Miriam Batsara, who has come again, as you have come so many times at Romemu, being one of those who would come in and go, and again come back drawn and sustained by the Torah that we have at Romemu. Rather than me telling everyone, what is it that has sustained you and for what? Please let us know in your words.
Thank you for having me back. Rabbi Mira, Rabbi David. Romemu has always been like the light that fed my soul, that fed my purpose, and that has sustained me to this day. Romemu was always with me along this long journey through rabbinical school at JTS, all the way from Sao Paulo, Brazil, to New York, to rabbinical school, completing the journey through rabbinical school, where for so many times, so many challenges, I needed support, I needed inspiration. And this is what this community, what this sacred congregation has provided me every time. And it is a blessing for me to be here right now. And I bless you all for all the support, for all that you meant to me. And like the menorah that comes from particles, from atoms, from molecules, and turn into a whole thing together with all parts of creation, where it came from. May you, like this menorah, continue to shine the light that it's reflected in its brilliance, in its reflection, and spread it out, with the light of your Torah to all of those who come in contact with you.
Amen. So really, for a lot of JTS students, Romemu means a lot. We've formed rows in the back. We've scattered all over the place in different corners, but we came and we learned and we held. Ken Hiratson.
Amen.
So I want to add my blessing. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek, chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. May we be strong, strong, strong with each other, strong, strong, strong for each other. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek, v'nit chazek. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek, v'nit chazek. As we close the Torah, the second book of Torah, let's close the Torah this morning, we read about the profound wisdom that was involved in making a Mishkan, making a holy space. And specifically, the Torah describes wisdom with Bitzalel, that God gave this person Bitzalel wisdom and tivuna and ruach, spirit and understanding, and just like really deep seeing. But specifically women, v'hanashim, asher nisa'o liban b'chokhmah, that the women in this week's parsha, the women are the ones who bring their wisdom and bring their Torah, and they are the ones who are told, right? The anashim brought liban, but here the women bring their wisdom, with their chokhmah. And so we bless you, Rav B'Yisrael, that you bring your wisdom, that you bring your Torah, that you bring your light, and that one must always remember as a rabbi that like that you are, of course, like what you offer is not just the Torah of speaking the words of that other people have said, but also in your listening and bringing Torah out from other people, which I know you do. And that your capacity both to birth Torah in your own heart from your own experience, but also to be a midwife for Torah for other people as well, is just one of the great gifts of being a Klei Kodesh, of being a vessel in this service. And so I look forward to learning from you and with you, and bless you with continued growth in your path and transparency to the Nebuv Haluchot, this empty space inside of the tablets, which is kind of a place where I think all of creation has been waiting for this moment, Marcel, where you will come and bring in your Torah to the Luchot. It's like your own, right? That's your space there that you'll write your Torah. And so we bless you. And we all say, Amen. Amen. Friends, we have a special Shabbat, this Shabbat. It's called Shabbat HaChodesh, which means it is the Shabbat of the month. Just a way of saying that the Shabbat in which you announce the coming month of Nisan, which is the first of all the months, the month of liberation, the month of freedom, the month of Aries and good beginnings and fire, cardinal fire. It is the special Shabbat that precedes that, that is that announcement, as it were, always takes place right before Pesach. And it is this Shabbat, and it is customary to read from chapter 12 of the book of Exodus, the book of Shmot, where the mitzvah, where the commandment, as it were, the obligation to call the month, to see the month. What is remarkable about the Jewish relationship with time is that it both exists as an objective, empirical, measurable phenomena, but also is dependent on the subjectivity of witnesses. People must witness the rebirth of the moon. It is an obligation for two witnesses to come and say, we saw the moon, we saw the moon. And then it becomes our way of participating in making sacred time. So this mitzvah was given to the children of Israel, according to the Torah, in the land of Egypt, in the midst of their slavery. And it's a reminder, of course, that one of the first things that one must reclaim is one's capacity to make a difference in time. So with your permission, everyone, I'll share my screen. We'll read from the Torah portion of Parshat Bo, which is chapter 12 here. Just 1 second. I'll share my screen. We're not going to do the entire thing, but we'll do just a little bit. I have to do this here. Excuse me. There you go. Okay, everybody. I know you can't see it yet. Wait 1 second. Here it is. Can you see it? Or did it go somewhere? It went somewhere. There it is. Now you see it? No, not yet. Okay, sorry about that. Now? Okay, everybody. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Mevorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu imikol ha'amim. V'nosan lanu es toraso. Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe el Aharon be'eret Mitzrayim lemor, and the beloved was, is, and will be said to Moses and Aaron in the place of constriction, saying, HaChodesh hazeh, HaChodesh hazeh, HaChodesh hazeh lachem Rosh Chodashim. This new moon, new moon. This one, Hazeh, this one. Let me show it to you, God says. I'm pointing to it. Moshe clearly had a problem with this and the menorah. Something about the renewal of the moon. It's lachem. It's for you, Rosh Chodashim. It'll be the first month for you, but meaning also for you to participate, as Bob said, to be a collaborator in making time sacred. It's lachem. It's the hoter of Vadai. It's enough. I could have done it myself, but lachem, I'm giving it to you. Please participate in making Rosh Chodashim, making new months. Rishonahu lachem. Again, it's for you. Lechotzei Shana, the first month of the year for you. Daveru el kol adat Yisrael lemor be'asor lachodesh hazeh v'yichu lahem ish selaveis avos selabayis. Speak to each of the witnesses, the children of Israel, the witnessing people. Say to them, in the 10th of this new month, do something crazy and radical. Take into your house for you, lahem, for you. Ish selavet avot, take a little lamb into your house. For one family, each family gets a lamb. That's a little bit scary because the lamb is the god of Egypt. What are they going to think if we bring a lamb into our house? Scary. And then keep it there for 4 days. Oh, Gewalt. V'imimat haba yismios miseh v'lakachu v'shchino karov el beiso b'michsas nifashos ish lefiach lo tachosu al haseh. If there's too small, right? The house is too small to have a lamb, then invite others in. Bring your shchino karov el beiso, right? Invite people into your Zoom Haggadah this year. Bring people in. Why not? You have enough room. It's a Zoom room. Set tamim zachar ben shana yeh lachem min hakevasim u'min ha'izim tikachu ve'haya lachem lemishmeres. Watch over that lamb ad arba asar yom lachodesh hazeh until the 14th day of the month. Ve'shachatu oso. Then kill the god of Egypt. Kol kal adat Yisrael ben arba'im. Let all of the witnessing people slaughter the lamb, the animal that has become the absolute. That will be your ticket to freedom. V'lachu min adam v'nasnu al shtei hamezuzot ala mashkof. Take from its life force, and that will be your ticket out of constriction. Place it on the 2 mezuzot and on the lintel of your homes. Make a birthing canal. Asher yachlu oso bahem, and forever become the people of the door. V'achlu es habasar b'layla hazeh tzli eish umatzos al mirarim yochlu. And then make a meal of the slaughtered idol. Make a meal, metabolize, be nourished by this symbol of your freedom. Eat it with all of the bitterness and all of the simplicity and all of the urgency that you can muster. Al techlu mimenu na'u v'shal mivoshal b'mayim ki im sliei shroshal kra'av al kirbo. Do not eat it raw, and don't eat it as it's cooked in water. Don't boil it, but roast it in the figure, as it were, of an embryo, of a womb-like creature, head between its knees, in the sense of, right, the possibility, right? Make sure that you remember that you are, each and every one of us, is born into a world of suffering, into a world of constriction, right? But we are to metabolize that, and from it, leave and turn straw into gold. Don't leave it over until morning. Freedom is something that you have to grasp now. Don't leave it over. Anything that's left over must be burnt in fire. Eat it this way. Pesach hula Adonai. Eat it this way, ready to leap, ready to jump over, ready for absolutely accelerated growth, ready at any moment to leave through a place of constriction and pass through as I pass over. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher nasan lanu Toras emes v'chei olam nata b'socheinu. Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
Amen. And a blessing for our Rav.
No. You already gave me a blessing a couple of weeks ago.
No, but you have to have a blessing.
I wanted to give the blessing to everybody else.
You first. Then we give you a blessing first, we insist, and then you can bless us all you want. Mishaberak, in the name of our community, Mishaberak Avotenu, Abraham Yitzchak Yaakov Imotenu, Sarah Rivka Rachel Beleah, Hu Yevarech, Et Harab Chaim David, Ben Shachna Uvel Kamiriam, Utevarech. שהיום לכבוד המקום, לכבוד התורה, לכבוד השבת. הקדוש ברוך הוא, הקדושה ברוכה היא, תברך הרב ואת כל משפחתה ותשלח ברכה בהצלחה בכל מעשה ידיה עם כל ישראל אחיו ואחיותיה ונאמר Amen.
Amen. I receive that blessing from you, channeled through the community, and I bless it back too, to all of you. that this is, again, Manishtana, this Pesach, a second Pesach, not together. But I can really feel, I so many of us can feel the feeling of freedom on the way. And I'm feeling the desire to gird and to get ready, right, for that moment when we'll say, okay. And so all of the suffering, all of the maror of the last year, metabolizing that also with some of the simplicities that matzah that has brought us our way, right? The simplicity of hearing the blessing of, wow, I can just click on something that I otherwise would not have. I'm holding both of those truths with all of you and eating it together with the recognition that fear is such a paralyzing quality. And there's some legitimate things that we were scared of this year, but God should bless us with the courage to bring anything we need to bring, and as it were, offer it at the doorpost, at the space of the liminal, so that we might be reborn too, through the courage we have to breathe through and push. A new world is coming for all of us. And let us say Amen.
Amen.
We invite healing into this space as we have yearned and learned, and now we are turning towards this beautiful community's need for healing and those within the community who are in need of healing. We invite you, Rabbi Mira.
Ana el narefanala. Ana el narefanala. Ana el narefanala. Heal us and we shall be healed.
Mishaber Avoteinu Imotenu, may the one who blessed our ancestors, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, David, Shlomo, Vet Imotenu, Sarif Karachal Yabil Azil Bedin Naomi, Yivarech, Virabes Kol HaCholim. Bless and heal all of those who are in need of healing this morning, those who are on this list, and those who are in our hearts, and those who are in the chat area, and all of those whom we bring to mind, may they be connected to our hearts and to our yearning for their fullness in body, heart, mind, and soul. We include them with all of our brothers and sisters who need healing in all places at this moment. May the light of the divine shine healing to them. Shabbati nezok rufa krova lavo. Hashtava galav izman kariv. V'nohumar amen. A prayer for our healthcare workers this morning.
Bless those who serve in our communities. Bless them in their comings and their goings. Heal them. Bless them as they go about their day. Protect them, source of all hope, source of all breath, and healer of all beings. As they stock community refrigerators, as they help those in hospitals, in adult rehab facilities, in prisons, in schools, and help them know again a time when they will breathe with ease. Bless the sacred work of their hands, and may this plague pass from among us speedily in our days. Amen.
As we hold the Torah and prepare to return the Torah to the Ark, we're also aware of the power of blessing of the new month, of the month ahead. And so as we make our turn this Shabbat towards Pesach, tomorrow is Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the new month of Nisan, the quality of Aries, the ram, the beginning, the quality of Avraham, the patriarch, and Sarah Imenu, the matriarch, the power of Hanitzanim Nir'u Ba'aretz, Eit HaZamir Higia, the Kol HaTor Nishma Be'artzenu, that, life is, energy is happening again. There's newness, there's blooming, there's blossoming. So into this Nisan, this quality of Nisan, יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו לאמותינו, שתחדש עלינו את החודש הזה לטובה ולברכה.
אמן.
ותיתן לנו חיים ארוכים, חיים של שלום, חיים של ברכה, חיים של פרנסה, חיים של חילוץ עצמות, חיים שיש בהם יראת שמיים ויראת חטא, חיים שאין בהם בושה וכלימם, חיים של עושר וכבוד, חיים חיים של אהבת התורה ויראת שמיים, חיים life חיים life vitality life חיים שאיש אנו משעת לעשות ליבנו לטובה, אמן נסלה. מי שעשה ניסים לאבותינו ואמותינו וגאל אותנו מעבדות לחירות, יגאל אותנו בקרוב ממש, יקבץ נידחנו מארבע כנפות הארץ, חווה במקום ישראל נאמר אמן. יחדשהו. נו, ראש חודש ניסן, repeat after me. ראש חודש ניסן.
ראש חודש ניסן.
יהיה ביום הראשון.
יהיה ביום הראשון.
הבא עלינו. ועל כל ישראל.
ועל כל ישראל.
לטובה.
לטובה.
יחדש הקדוש ברוך הוא נראה כל מעבד ישראל לחיים ולשלום.
אמן.
לששון ולשמחה.
אמן.
ישועה לנחמה.
אמן.
לפרנסה וכלכלה.
אמן.
For healing in body, heart, mind, and spirit.
Amen.
For shared freedoms and collective narratives of liberation.
Amen.
And let us all say Amen.
Amen.
Yehallelu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado. Hodu al eretz hashamayim v'yarken amoti l'alecha chasidam, b'nei Yisrael am kiravo aliyam.
It's Chaim Hillel Machazikim Ba Betom Cheya Meushar Decheya Darchei Noam Vechol Netivotea Shalom Hashiveinu Adonai Shuva Kaddish Yameinu Kekedem.
Hashevota elevavecha Ki Adonai Hu Elohim.
Ve'ashev ota elevavecha Ki Havaya Hi Elohim.
Enon milvado Enon Zulato.
Einod מלבדו אין עוד וזולתו.
השב אותה אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו אחד. Into the sacred space, we invite the memories of loved ones. We invite the direct experience of a mourner in Rabbi Jonathan Zimet, who is within the first week of mourning for his mother, Lily. For Julia Eisenberg, Eric Press, David DeChico, Michael Yates, Robert Kakugan, Hugh Kelly, and Norton Juster. For Leslie Robert Axelrod, Charlotte Figman, Seymour Borstein, Stuart Saville, Hank Wesselman, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, Martin Burzow, and Rachel Piken. For David Rothstein and Felix Austin, Gabriel Gottlieb, Arthur Adler, Gilda Koppelman-Rieger, Mary Armstrong Meems, Rudy Lev, Rebecca Pat Cohen, Gerald Bregman, Daisy Menkes Klein, Marianne Goldstick, Jay Goldstein, Seymour Brodsky, Vera Goldman, Rafael Rios Gallardo, Seth Lasnow, and Myrna Feldman, Sarah Molina Siegman, Evelyn Goodman, Chaya Bracha, and Arthur Siegel, Jason Andrew Brodsky, Dr. Norman Crane, Salman Marenberg, Cecilia Romo, Stuart Fred Feit, David Wenegrat and David Silverstein, Harriet Bloom, Shirley Siegel, and Benjamin Wolf Talushkin, Beth Baldridge and Devorah Stahl, Lee Brox, Jean Foreman Shore, Ellsworth Levine, Erwin Bardash, Mr. L.C. Pops Floyd, Lynn Blacker, Shirley Gatzik, Grace Tamin, Denmark, Rabbi Raphael Goldstein, Magid Yitzchak Buxbaum, Brady Rifkin, Lorette Nierenberg, Barry Kosky, Betty Levin, Nancy Traeger, Rabbi Dr. Henry Dicker, Robert Gerald Cohen, Angela Lamb Margolis, Evelyn Marama Goodman, also Chaya Bracha, Tav Sparks, Annie Esti, Marisin Nanyan, Lillian Lashinsky, Kate's dad, Jonina Goodwin, Godwin Pitchman, Luca Sota, Lou Aronowitz, Lois Sasson, Bear Grushkin, Lucy Brabin, Henrietta Vogel, Chaim Kabak, Breonna Taylor, Billy, who died by suicide, Rabbi David Cooper, Reverend Robert Grates, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, Mark Evan Beitman, Helene Ailon, Anna Marie Zangara, Zati Munajat, or just Zati, Charlie Dixon, Ido Sheffi, Joyce Cohen, Emma Menashe, Chaim Ben Lazar, and Leo Litvak. In our space as well, Dr. Farnush Kafavian, Dr. Alexander Kaliski, Dora Betances, Dr. Sam Willinger, Nipo Soteri, Jorge Feliciano, and all of those who are in the chat. I'm not going to get to all of them, but we lift all of those names. I can't see all of them in what order they are, but I think Billy Capito, Betsy Dean, Hiram Kasten. So we lift all of those names, and the ones on YouTube and the ones on Facebook. And if it is your custom as a mourner to stand, please rise. If it's your custom to support mourners by rising and are able to, please rise. As we intone these Aramaic words of remembrance and connection with our ancestors and all that they gave to us and that we bring forward. Yiskadal v'yiskadash shemei rabam.
Amen.
Alma divrach yirusei v'yamlich machusei. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chay dechol beit Yisrael. B'agala u'izman koriv yimeru. Amen.
Amen.
ישמר רב ולורח לעם ומאיה יתברך וישתבח וידבר ויתרומם יתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי דקודשה בריחו Leila min kol birchasa v'shirasa tushbechasa v'nechemasa damiran b'omam v'imiru amen.
Amen.
יש לו מרבה משמיה וחיים טובים. עלינו ועל כל ישראל הינו אמן.
Amen.
עושה שלום במרומם, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל, and let us say.
Amen. Rabbi David, just Kananahara, just some of the names you read, I think were doctors and people who are in need of healing. So they should live long and healthy lives.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Hopefully my words are hopefully not that powerful in that way. Thank you. I need a help here.
Ein Keloheinu, Keloheinu, Ein Gadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Kemoshienu. Ein Keloheinu, Mikadonenu, Mikemalkeinu, Mikemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu.
Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shiktienu, Amnenu, Lifanechai, Toret Asamim, Yanai, Nanai, Yanai, Yanai. Hey, na 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 na, dancing with the ancestors. Bring your Bobby, your Zadie. I have my Ali with me and my grandma Irene. Let's dance. Bum ba da da da, ba da da da. Hey, na 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 na. Uncle Joey, come dance. Ay na 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 na, hey na 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 na, hey na 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 na. Hey, na na, hey, na 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 na, na 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 na, hey, na na, hey, na 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 na, na na na. Pesach is on the way. There you go. Manischewitz in the house. Manischewitz. Maybe people. Let me say it again. There you go. Manischewitz. We have some important announcements for all of you, friends, those of you who are still with us, we hope. There's amazing Passover Torah coming down the pike, meaning we have an open Beit Midrash with Rabbi Koler Esses, the women of Passover, a community Seder for everyone on the second night, a Brooklyn one, and a New York, Manhattan one. We also have a number of other programs. It's wonderful to be on a panel with Dr. Tammy Jacobowitz and with Rabbi David Silber, one of my a luminary. It'll be remarkable just to be together and talk about Pesach. So all of those offerings for the community. And starting this week, maybe Maya, you want to say a little bit about this class that you're starting on April 7th? Not on this week.
We'll be diving into the who, what, when, where, why of prayer, starting with the roots. We'll sing a little bit. We'll learn a little bit. Oh, what a time we'll have.
I imagine you will, just knowing you and your teaching. So it'll be amazing. April 7th, everybody. There is going to be home hosting on Shabbat, April 23rd. Check that out, everybody. We have a new program at the Romemu Yeshiva. On Wednesdays from 2:30 to 3, we'll be having a mincha service from 2:30 to 3 on Wednesdays. Let's see. Look at all this good stuff. I started a class that had almost 100 people in it. People want to talk about Buddhism and Judaism. It's pretty amazing. So we did that this past Thursday. Please, you can still join that class. And then we have these other remarkable teachers, Rabbi Daniel Silverstein and Rabbi Dorothy Richmond, also are teaching. And there's also applications open for our 2021 Yeshiva cohort. We have an immersive experience and also an online experience. So both of those things are available. So please check that out if you would like to avail yourself of that. Now, by Rivera, I want to tell us a little bit about this community kitchen and clothing drive that's still going.
Still going, indeed. March 14, community kitchen and clothing drive. Really, this is happening at our center, the Romemu Center. We're there twice a month, 2 Sundays a month. And volunteers, we have a lot. Donations could be more. So reach out to us, but do not be upset if you get scheduled months in advance.
Got it. Okay, that's important to know. We could use some more contributions. That's important to know. We're also helping people schedule a vaccine. If you need help, or we want to help others schedule their vaccine, we're offering that as part of our chesed, loving kindness in the world. Please let us know by going online and sending an email to chesed@roma.org and say, I need some help scheduling a vaccine. Rabbi Rivera and Maya, next week, we can't be late because it's going a little bit further. So 6:30 is when services begin next Friday night. Note the time change because daylight savings. So next Friday night at 6:30, new time. Rabbi Mir, you've been to the Kohenet Shabbaton every year, right?
Yes, it's quite an amazing experience.
It's amazing. Rabbi Jill Hammer is one of the great rabbis and teachers of our generation, and we're so blessed to have her around the corner. And she'll bring our beloved Shoshana Jedwab, who's also Rav Kohenet, and they're just gonna light up, energize a week from today. So next Shabbat morning will be a Kohenet Shabbat honoring the spring equinox. And that's it, everybody. We're gonna fill up this cup of blessing right now. A big yasher koach to our davening team, to Rabbi Rivera and to Maya Zinkov, our JSI intern, Rabbi to be Maya Zinko, and our laners this morning, to Alyssa Marco, and Jamie Askin, and Marcel. So beautiful, thank you. And look at this great team. We're so blessed. Into this cup of blessing, all of these wonderful people, including the ones who are behind the scenes today, perhaps Michaela from Belgium, Michaela C., Dr. Michaela C., and Evie might want to say hello and be spotlit for a second just so we can say hello to you guys and see you. Thank you so much. Wherever you are. Oh, there you are. There's Evie. And Dr. C. Okay. Into this cup of blessing, everyone. V'shameru b'nei Yisrael es ha-Shabbos asos es ha-Shabbos לדורosam bris olam. Ve'ini uvein b'nei Yisrael osli li'olam. Ki sheshes yamim asa Adonai es ha-shamayim es ha'aretz. U'vayom ha-shevi shavasoyi nafash. Al kein berach Adonai et yom ha-Shabbat v'yikadsheu savri.
Chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Maya, what you got? Some Adon Olam. We need an Adon Olam.
Oy, oy, oy.
So if you don't have anything, it's okay. Rabbi Mir will have something. Somebody.
Adon olam asher malach בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא וחפצו חול, אזי מלך שמו נקרא. ואחרי כתלות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה והוא הווה, והוא יהיה בתפארה.
והוא אחד ואין שני, להמשילו להכבירה.
בלי ראשית,
בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה. והוא היה והוא הווה, והוא יהיה בתפארה. I think I'm mixing around. It's like, it's Shabbos is.
And I go, Yado, Avkid Ruchi, Beit Ishan Ve'ira, Ve'im Ruchi Geviasi, Adonai Li, Velo Ira, Adon Holam.
The point is, he'll reign forever, she'll reign forever, and I won't be afraid. I know no lama share my life. V'terem kol yitzir nivra, Ramemira.
Ya ya da 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 da, ya da da da, ya da da da, da 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 da.
Nine, 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 nine.
Die, 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 die.
Did-I, nine, nine. Didn't I, nine, nine. Didn't I, nine, 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 nine. Let's get everybody up on their feet, everybody, before we finish the Shabbat morning service. Ready, everybody? If you're on your feet, I'm going to take a look right now. Let's get a little Shabbat dance going here, everybody. Shabbos brother, Jay, Shabbos Sarah, and Shabbos Bob and Emily, and Shabbos Jonathan. Adele, Shabbos Suzanne, Margaret Keith, Shabbos Joseph, Marla, and Jesse. Not the Esther in Yerushalayim. You can't get enough Shabbos in Yerushalayim. You want more Shabbos. Shabbos Glory, Shabbos Annalisa, Shabbos Kim, Arnold and Barbara, and Karen, Victor, Stephen, Sherry, Khan, Johnny, Kelly, and Joyce David, Shabbos Joyce and Jimmy and Michael. I met Ahava in Gettysburg. Shabbos friends, Lori welcome. Lauren and Jeremy. Shabbos Tamar, Lauren. Shabbos Pauline, Rona. I'm fine. It's great to be with you in that private moment. We send you our love, Jonathan. Rabbi Jonathan. Wendy, Sandra. Vicky, Buzz, want to sing hello? Nancy. See you moving, dancing, Matthew. Stephen. Shabbos brother Stephen walking in the streets of New York City with the music. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל. A good Chodesh tomorrow, everybody. Good Shabbos, blessed people. Good Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Good Shabbos, Maya.
Maya Rab.
Shabbos. Shabbos.